So this recent special, I talk about like my childhood in the very small town, like bringing a gun to elementary school for show and tell.
What?
Yeah.
You actually did that?
Yeah. So I have a whole bit about that, and I get taken to the principal's office, and the principal has my back because it's the smallest town ever.
That's in the show now.
Are we ready?
Yeah, you're good.
It's lovely to have both of you here.
Excited.
I feel like things have really changed in the church because I think back in the 80s, seeing a nun next to a tattooed muscle guy would have seemed insane. Whereas today, the nuns are cool. Like the Catholic, I really do think the new rebellion is like Orthodox Christianity. And by Orthodox, I mean both capital and lowercase o. So it's great to have you both.
Can we rewind to when you called me a muscle guy and how cool that was? Yeah. Feeling pretty good about that.
I feel like I've not really been accused of being cool, and so I'm excited about that part.
Were you cool as a kid?
We're both so egocentric.
Yeah.
Like in high school, were you kind of cool?
No, definitely not.
Is that true, do you think? Or is that just what you think? Did other people think you were kind of weird?
I think it's true that I wasn't cool. I was a skateboarder,
That's
but
cool.
I didn't really have a lot
Did you
of
listen
friends.
to Avril Lavigne? And
I did, but that was before I was a skateboarder. Like, Avril Lavigne was more when I was in middle school.
Okay. Yeah, I'm much older than you.
Could you kickflip in your habit?
Well, I didn't wear a habit in high school.
But now, currently.
Oh, I couldn't kickflip anymore.
Oh, that would be
you
so
could.
cool.
What was the coolest thing you could do?
Probably
I know
kickflip
no
or
other
like
term
a
but
shove it
kickflip.
sex change.
No idea what that is. What is that?
Well, a normal shove it is just when you like kick the board 180 degrees and then jump forward onto it. And then, so that's a shove it sex change, which is not really a great term anymore.
You
Anyways,
can come up with it. That's all right.
you flip the board and then you also jump 180 degrees and land on the board.
I want to know. I'd like us to do this. I'd like us to both like each go around and talk about what we were like in high school. Okay, so you were a skater. So did you tend to gravitate more to male friendships?
Oh yes, my whole life.
Seems like a kind of a tomboy hobby is what is my sexist comment for the episode.
Okay, yeah.
Just the one.
We'll see what happens.
pile
I'm
'em on.
feeling fresh. I wouldn't know. Yeah, I was not cool. I was a Metallica guy. That's what people called us, the Metallicas. That was our group's name, the Metallicas, but not in a cool way. Just
Okay.
like
Yeah, I know.
me and my friends who were trying to grow long hair.
Okay.
And were and pretended to be angry. That was me.
How long did it get?
I didn't ever have the courage to grow it very, very big, but I had some friends who did. And some of them had really curly hair, and as they grew it out, it just looked awful. But at some point, it took a turn. And it was like, wow, well done for putting in that investment.
Yeah, it takes time. In high school, I grew up in such a small town that like to have a clique wasn't really a thing. So I was like a nerd when it was time to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I was a skater when it was time to skate, and I was a baseball player when it was time to play baseball. But around 14, I was like, I'm gonna smoke cigarettes and be a degenerate, a grown man, and that's what I was up to. So I kind of didn't. My childhood pretty much ended around 14.
Oh,
I know
that's really
it.
sad.
Is it? A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a job since I was like 9. I realized that the other day I was talking to someone and they were talking to me about punishments for a child. And I was like, make them chop wood or stack rocks or dig a hole. That's what I did those things. And then I was like, oh, I guess I chopped wood for like a job when I was a child. And then I was like, oh, I've had a job since I was 9, like a part-time at least. So that's probably not the normal experience. That's like a farm thing. Right?
Did you live on a farm?
I mean, I lived near one. My family was too poor. We weren't the owners. We were like, my mom like picked like fruit or did menial labor. So not the most wonderful, but still character building.
Was there a time in your childhood or teenage years where you thought, I've come into my own. Like, I think I'm kind of cool, at least in my own eyes right now. Like, I can be more confident than I thought I could be up. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
It
does make sense.
Yeah.
Definitely not. I didn't feel like myself until I was in the monastery.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm still struggling with it currently. Trying to figure it all out. What am I doing? But no, never confident as a high schooler or a middle schooler.
I feel like for the sake of transparency, I should clarify so that people don't misunderstand. I skated in high school. That was the first thing that came to mind. But I wasn't like a skater.
Yeah.
I didn't really fit into any cliches because I also was very much a hardworking student who then like it was really important to me to go to a good college and things like that. And so I was a nerd and also a skater and also, I don't know. I was just a lot of different things.
What kind
I
of
also was
nerd?
a cheerleader in high school.
Like a math nerd or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you ever play that video game, Tony Hawk's something?
Pro skater?
Yeah.
Yeah. Underground is the best
That
one.
was wild. On the PS1?
Oh, dude, the soundtrack.
Yeah, who was that again?
I mean, there were so many people.
Okay.
Every time I hear that Goldfinger song, the like saxophone, it just puts a little pep in my step because I'm like a child again.
Did
It's
you
a
play
good one.
video games as a teenager?
A little bit, not a ton.
Did you have a console?
We did. Yeah.
It's amazing how nostalgia really does make me think that those things are better than they actually are.
Oh, yeah.
When you talk to people who, you know, were kind of teenagers when the Atari came out, Pong was the greatest thing in the world. You know what I mean? And Space Invaders, etc. But yeah, I don't think they'd be that excited about it. If they
For
came
me,
out
it's Super Mario 3
Okay.
for NES, the first Nintendo. That's like was the height of gaming. And me and my brothers were obsessed. And then I remember watching the movie Three Ninjas and they were playing it. And I was like, we're just like the ninjas. Like, I was so pumped.
I really liked, what was the Mario one where you jumped into the paintings?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, Super Mario 64.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I got you.
You never played Super Mario 64?
I was always a Sega fella. Well, in fact, in Australia, we pronounce it Sega.
Oh,
And then I
That's
remember
kinda
at the
weird.
start,
Yeah.
you put in the cartridge and it would go, Sega.
Yeah.
Why are they pronouncing it wrong?
you people.
No, I have such fond memories of video games. My wife never grew up really playing many video games, a little bit. So when I would tell her about some of the best memories from my high school years with playing video games with my friends, she would look at me with tremendous pity. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, oh, no, I actually really think it was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found out somewhat recently in the last couple of years that a friend of mine, we had the same experience of growing up. Like we both just wanted time with our brothers. And so my brother would like let me play video games with him, but he would always my controller was unplugged or he would tell me,
Classic move.
or he would tell me like, oh, you're this person, you know? But the thing is, I figured it out way before I said something because I just was so excited to be
That makes me so
playing a game with my
so
brother.
sweet. That
It's
is
so
like,
sweet and so sad.
Oh, it's so nice.
But one of my other female friends had this same experience growing up with
They
her
played
brother.
Tails in Sonic and Tails.
Something
when it was
like
one
that.
player.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
I think actually I used to play Tails.
That is let's dig into that because that is such a sad story.
Shayne thinks it's sweet. I think it's sweet
Well, I think it's sad because it
because
doesn't.
my brother didn't actually want
Well,
to
it's
spend
because
time
you
with
loved
me.
him so much and
Oh,
you were
yeah.
willing to go along to make him happy, even though
Well,
you
yeah.
weren't getting anything out of the game. It's kind of like a child who maybe it means more to their parents that they believe in Father Christmas than that they do, so they go on believing it for the good of the parents. Maybe like, it's like
Yeah,
that. It's kinda
yeah.
sweet and sad. Yeah.
Oh man, I figured that out recently too. I never thought Santa was real.
Oh, I thought you just figured out recently.
Santa was real? Yeah. The other day, someone was like, "I gotta buy my kids presents," and I'm like, "Santa does that? What are you talking about?" No, I never thought Santa was real, and I was like, "Oh man, that experience sounds like it was fun." To think Santa was real, that sounds cool.
Until
Until you figure it out.
I remember telling my friend, Toby Crocker, who was trying to tell me Santa Claus does not exist, it's not real. And I then relayed to my parents how I rebuked him with my logic and facts. I'm saying to mum and dad. And then I said to Toby, as if my parents would be so disgusting as to like chew on the carrots we leave on the front lawn for Santa's reindeers. And I'm sure they were like, yeah, that would be really gross.
Your dad's spitting carrots out.
I remember when I've always been super gullible, but also the truth is so important to me and precision of language is so important to me and all of this. And so I remember when I found out because also I really hope no kids listen to this at all because this is just the most devastating thing at this point.
Turn it off now, kids.
Yes.
Spoiler alert.
Ear, what's it called? When you
Earmuffs.
earmuffs. Yeah. I remember my mom sitting my brother and I down. My brother's 2 years older than me, to talk about Santa Claus. And my brother says, Mom, don't worry. I know he's not real. And I just go, don't worry, Mom. I still believe. And she's like, well, and I was devastated. I was like, this just broke my trust. And how can I ever believe? Why would my parents lie to me?
It is interesting how people have different responses. 'Cause
Yeah.
I actually spoke to a fella. He's a big burly fella, very educated, PhD, as well as being burly, which is weird to find. It's almost not fair. Like, you can be strong or smart. Don't be both. Because there's some of us who are
Shayne is
neither, and we
both.
don't appreciate it.
No, I'm incredibly
he called you
silly.
muscle guy.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. No, I know what he said. I'm not both though.
But he said, like, he had to forgive his mum later in life because it was traumatic. So this part, I hear that, I'm like, yeah, get over it. But I mean, if children react differently, and they're not wrong to react the way that they do. So that's interesting that you reacted that way.
I find older siblings seem to take it better because then they are in on it for the younger siblings.
Yeah, I was the youngest.
So they come into the understanding and then they kind of like get to play the game and watch their siblings have that sense of wonder. Whereas if you're the youngest, you're like, so just nothing then. Like, great, cool, you know. But whatever, I don't know. What an interesting experience though.
What was your first job?
Well,
Like real job, not like...
not like babysitting and things like that.
Yeah, not like that. Like your first, you get a paycheck.
I worked at Chick-fil-A for 2 years
Did
when I was
you?
14.
Oh. Was that great?
I loved it.
Did you say my pleasure?
I still say my pleasure.
Yep.
It's stuck.
Why is Chick-fil-A so great?
It really is.
Here's a fun fact, actually. 2 fun facts about me working at Chick-fil-A. One is that the owner's son came to our store at some point, and he was there with his friends. And he was so impressed by my hostessing. This was like when hostesses were first a thing at Chick-fil-A. They like wasn't a thing before. And so he had a film crew come out and they put me in the training video.
Whoa.
So that's one fun fact.
I want to see that video.
That was my first appearance before even Pints with Aquinas. And
Of
then,
Chick-fil-A fame.
yeah, I think people have looked for this video and they haven't, praise God, found it. So I don't. Yeah, we used it like in our store, and then they were using it at Chick-fil-A's, but it's updated now. Praise the Lord. And but the other fun fact is that I also was sometimes the cow.
Okay.
The mascot, except they called me the calf because I'm very short.
Small.
And my tail would drag on the ground.
At football games or something? Or
Football games, soccer games, events at like the library. I don't know,
is
whatever.
this part of your job? Like, were you getting paid hourly by Chick-fil-A for this?
Yeah, I wasn't just doing it for funsies.
Sounds kind of fun. I don't know.
Actually, it's my passion. I just like to cow around, hang out. Yeah. I just like to move around town.
He's a comedian.
Yeah. I'm throwing out a few dad jokes.
What's your first paycheck job?
My first paycheck job. What was my first paycheck job? I think it was like my first job where like a stranger was like, here's the money, was thawing pipes. So we would go out to like alfalfa fields or cornfields or whatever in the morning, either on horseback or 4-wheelers, depending on what we had. And we would go thaw pipes before school.
So much cooler than what I did. Continue. I was a checkout chick. Continue.
Way cooler than Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, it's a really cold job. And I remember I did it with this.
On horseback?
Yeah, sometimes.
Did you have your like hairy chest facing the sun, shirt open?
Almost like the most baby-faced kid.
Very...
Zero body hair.
I'm not going to lie, I regret saying that. I'd like us not to dig into that.
Unfortunately,
I think Shayne's the only one who doesn't regret that you said that.
yeah, I'm kind of
back mountain. Keep
proud
going.
of. Well, okay, hold on now.
Sorry, mother.
But I did. It was good. But I was a cowboy, but like I wasn't like looking like it. I was wearing like Osiris shoes. Riding a horse, going to put mixture into this thing.
I mean, that sounds like a really cool manly job. But did you actually have like a paycheck job where they took taxes out and you had like you had to be there?
My first paycheck job was like a phone bank. So like I definitely worked for a place where they were stealing from people. Like I would like, do you want a vacation? Would you like, this is before all those jobs were sent to India or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I would do that and they would be like, is this a scam? And I'm like 15 and I'm like, absolutely not. I'm a child. I don't even know what I'm doing. I just want $120 for like, oh man, they paid minimum wage was like $7 an hour at the time. Oh wow. I made no money. And then I worked at Subway and that was a good job.
I've heard that the avocado they serve at Subway comes from cans.
It didn't when I worked there. We used to do all the prep work. I love
Wouldn't that be
prep
gross
work.
if it did though?
That sounds disgusting.
Doesn't it? I wonder if it's. I'm gonna look
Yeah,
it up.
you should look it up. I know the bread is classified as like a donut or something because there's so much sugar in it.
Here, you know who we're gonna ask? ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's Subway's so bad for you.
Avocado from where is
You
it?
were a
Subway come.
Yeah,
That's really
I
cool.
still am. I got the boots and everything.
Subway's avocado typically comes in the form of a pre-made. There you go, pre-made packaged spread. So it's not canned. So it's less gross maybe, but pre-made packaged spread. It often is made from mashed avocado and added ingredients. Okay. That's
What
not
are the added ingredients? Like styrofoam?
probably just spices or something.
I just feel like they're always putting weird stuff in the food. They're like, it's avocado and we added sludge. You're like, why did you add sludge to it? And they're like, it's a mystery. It'll kill you, but it tastes good. Like, just feed me regular food, please.
No, this is my wife's. She's on this kick right now of like telling everybody they're eating poison.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's wonderful to have at dinner parties.
Cool.
But she's exactly right too.
She only eats meat, right?
She only eats meat.
So she's kind of, that's like what vegans do.
Yeah.
She's in the reverse. So
Yeah. Now it would be over the top if she was trying to make everyone carnivore. She's totally not. But I think she's like RFK, right? Just going around telling people
Right.
they're eating poison and being completely right.
I mean, yeah.
It's wild that America has the lowest age of death out of rich countries.
We dropped.
So America has a higher. What am I trying to say? Average lifespan.
Lifespan. Yeah. We, my generation dies before our parents. So like Gen X isn't my parents, the boomers are. And boomers were living in the 80s. That had to do so much damage to their bodies. The 80s were crazy. How are we dying before them? Like the 80s had to be so bad for you.
So you're saying, yeah, tell us more.
Yeah,
That sounds
a
unbelievable.
boomer's life expectancy is like 76 if you're a man, or 73 if you're a man, higher if you're a woman. And if you're my generation, I think it's like 72 or something. It like lowered.
Yeah.
The first time in like modern history in a first world country that's happened.
I'm all about being America, but not when it comes to the crap we eat in our food. It's
I know it.
disgusting.
Freedom, baby.
Freedom to be fat and to die young.
The freedom to eat 2 packs of sweet tart ropes a day, which isn't something I'm totally doing. They're so good.
Do you care about your health? It's nice you have a habit. It covers a multitude of sins. Not that you're fat. I'm just saying, if you were, it would cover it.
Well, I care about.
I feel like I should leave. I'm not.
I couldn't tell which one was the microphone. You're so small and dainty.
Oh, thanks, Shane.
Did
I think. I mean, I care.
you ever care about how? Because you have health issues, kind of like my wife, right? Have you ever tried to eat well to mitigate it?
I have not. I was like, that's just gonna be a lie. Well, no, but I want to go back to. I think there's something very wrong with what you just asked, because you said, "Do you care about your health?" Well, you wear a habit, so it covers things. But like, your health is not just about your physical appearance, or like that's vanity. That's not the same as health.
I disagree.
Your appearance-
No, of course, I agree.
I mean, your appearance can coincide with your health. It's a pretty
Sure.
good indicator. If you see someone, if you were like, I got to organize a football team right now, there's certain people who you're like, that's going to be the healthier.
Right, but his implication seemed to be that
The only reason you should
I
be
don't need
concerned
to
with
care
eating
about my
well.
health because my habit covers
because
up
you're
my-
hiding in your
yes.
habit. Yeah.
But I care about my health. So this was actually a really important transition for me that happened at some point in the monastery, because I've struggled with body image issues for my whole life, as like every woman does.
Is that right?
Oh,
Has that been your experience when you talk to women? That most women. Forgive me, I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the
Yeah,
more beautiful
absolutely.
they are, the worse it is.
Yeah.
case in point. It's crazy. It is crazy though. They're always gorgeous and like just perfect, and then they're like, I am a blob or whatever. And you're like, what do you see when you look at yourself? Reality is like.
I mean,
warped.
I guess I figure that in this visual culture, it makes sense that a lot of women and now increasingly men would feel that way about themselves. I just didn't know to what degree it kind of impacts them.
I remember having a conversation with someone at some point in the monastery, because I realized after being in the monastery for a few years, someone was taking a picture at some point. This is very vulnerable. That's fine. Someone was taking a picture of us in a group, and I realized that I was sucking my stomach in for the picture. But this was just like so ingrained and so habitual that I just did it without thinking. And afterwards I was like, what is going on? Like, that's not... So anyways, this transition happened at some point a few years ago where I did care about my health. I cared about I've always been like very active. And I cared about all of that because I cared about my figure. But then at some point it shifted as the Lord just healed interior things, because it's always an interior problem. I can say something about that in a second. But as he continued to heal the interior for me, then it shifted to, I wanted to be healthy in order to be able to do the things that I love to do, to be able to run and rock climb and hike mountains and things like that. So my health does matter to me. I do the things that I need to be healthy. So what you're referring to that I have that's similar to Cameron is I have POTS, which is a dysautonomia. It's a problem with the autonomic nervous system. And I've been able to, just through cardiac rehab and increasing my salt intake and always wearing compression socks, I went from getting a migraine every other day to I get a migraine a couple times a year now. And I can run I run half marathons and things like that. And so that's been super, super exciting.
Is that dog still attacking you?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's still a dog. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to do something about that guy.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about it though.
I'm gonna buy I'm gonna buy
Like
you
the
guys
runner
like
spray?
a Red Ryder BB gun, and then just put it on your back
by a
like you're
monastery?
one of those Olympic skiers, and then pull it off and you see the dog. And
Is this the road by your monastery where you run?
Yeah. Yeah, they have dogs and not fences. And they just there was one, there's like this German shepherd that will chase me down the street. It's terrifying.
That is
putting
way to make
minutes
you run
on your
faster.
time. Yeah, I was gonna say knocking off
and one
seconds.
time it was one of the people, they come out of their house as this dog is just like coming at me. None of them have ever bit
my
me.
goodness.
And they come out and they're like,
sorry.
come on.
When
Come back in.
people make
in.
excuses
And I'm like,
for their dogs
"Do
who act
something."
inappropriately, they should be deported.
Yeah, no,
Those
it's the
people.
worst.
They are the worst people.
Yeah.
If your dog scares someone or barks at them or snaps at them, you're the problem. And it's not, don't make excuses for your stupid dog.
Yeah.
Feel
Well,
very
you're in
strongly
charge.
about
The
this.
dog is a dog.
That's right.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
Dogs are tools.
You're in charge. You are capable of
Exactly.
shooting it in the back of the head and burying it in your backyard.
Right.
Seriously.
So I want to go back to what I said about it being an interior problem.
Yep.
Because
Enough of killing dogs. Let's go back to the regular stuff. The
So,
thing most people love.
now that all the dog lovers have stopped listening, there's actually, so in our monastery, we have our cells, which is the word that we use for our rooms. We have our cells dedicated. We have a picture of a saint that we hang on the outside of our door and then one on the inside. And as patrons, basically, of like our exterior life and our interior life. And years ago, I chose for the patron of my interior life, I chose Saint Fotina, the woman at the well. Fotina is the name given in tradition to the woman at the well. And I think most people would think of her as someone who was very exteriorly sinful and had this exterior conversion, but it really was so much a conversion of the interior in her encounter with the Lord, that all of the sin that was happening outside of her was coming from those interior wounds. And so I think I think that we make the mistake when a woman is struggling with like body image issues we make them, or anyone, we make the mistake of thinking that this is a problem that's an exterior problem that needs addressed. And they just need to somehow be convinced that they're beautiful, or they need to be convinced that they're desirable, or that but like, that's not the problem. There's something inside of them that needs healed. Yeah.
When people ask me about my tattoos and if I enjoy to have them and if I like how I look, I do. When I was a child, I saw lots of people with tattoos and I just really wanted to aspire to that. All the people I looked up to, I thought it was manly and cool and interesting and whatever. And I always say, if the person who looks at you in the mirror is the person you imagine yourself to be, that is like healing and beautiful and good. And so I think so many people, it's the interior issue. They imagine themselves, and then the person who looks at them in the mirror is not the imagined person. And that creates like this major conflict. So the key is to imagine yourself differently. So difficult, easier said than done by a lot. But yeah.
And how much has this been expedited by social media? I know people always talk about this. I'm so glad my eldest daughter has never had a smartphone. She's never had the horror of having to scroll. Like, to imagine the depth you get to create in a child by encouraging her to learn poetry and to like journal, as opposed to figure out what filter makes her skin look good. Like, when that's your predominant thing you're doing daily, that's got to be so destructive.
It's heartbreaking when just my regular female friends are on their stories with filters. And they have to have a filter on everything when they talk to the camera, take a photo, and it's like absolutely not necessary.
Someone asked me, someone took a picture of me recently for my podcast, and there was something, I don't remember. I made a joke about something in the picture, and they were like, well, we can just Photoshop that out or edit that out or whatever. And I was like, no, please don't. Like, I made a joke to Josiah at one point, because I had like a terrible zit, and I recorded multiple episodes at once for my Pints episodes. And so I was like, man, it's going to be like weeks of people seeing this huge zit. And so I made a joke to Josiah about editing it out. And he was like, I can if you want. And I was like, no, please don't. Because like, that's not the witness that I want to give to people of, let them see that Mother Natalia has zits too.
I noticed after I went to a Bob Schutz.
I thought you were about to say, I noticed.
No.
I noticed. Couldn't stop looking.
I noticed after I went to a Bob Schutz retreat that why is it that I hide so much of my behavior? So I might be, I don't know. I know we've already talked about video games. I don't play them much, but let's say I'm playing a video game and my wife or my son or someone walks in, and I might like put it down. You have that experience, not with video games, or like you're just doing something and then and why am I acting like I'm unacceptable? And if I am unacceptable, then I can also address that. But sometimes you, like you said, when you someone takes a photograph and you change your position, why do I do that unconsciously? That's what's weird. When I was like putting down the game without realizing or even thinking through, why is this unacceptable? Is this wrong? Why? And I think some of it does maybe come from childhood, especially if you had like an overbearing parent who you feel like you're being yelled at all the time. I kind of felt like I was yelled at all the time and always in trouble. So I feel like I'm always in trouble. Like someone's always about to.
Yeah, especially too because we were both raised in a time where parents didn't understand what video games were. And so they're like, you're rotting your brain. The video game is way better for you than any TV you'd ever watch. You're being active, you're solving problems, you're using your imagination, you're reading, you're doing math. It's engaging. It's often social nowadays. So like a parent who would admonish you but then go watch Netflix is like, what are you doing? So parents don't really admonish their kids anymore. Also, kids can be millionaires from playing video games now. So there's more money in esports than all American sports combined.
Yeah, I don't think we should encourage our children to play video games, though.
But we should. I think that it's a tool, among other things, to allow kids to like spend their time. For sure,
I agree with I agree with part of what you're saying. I think the bit I agree with is, it's easy to be judgmental about what someone's doing and then go and binge 3 shows of Netflix. Like, or not even that. I remember my parents would sit down and watch the news. Like we're watching the news, and it had this air of sophistication about it, but it's like, this is entertainment, and that's why you're doing it. And so it's easy to criticize somebody doing something that you think is juvenile, and then go and watch a bunch of news.
Exactly.
I think
Add something to that.
If you do it really quickly.
There's a like culture in dating now of women judging men for playing video games, but they spend as much time watching the same TV show over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, the reason I said really quickly is I'm afraid they can't hear you. So if you want to come in and say
yeah.
it to the...
Yeah. Here, I'll share.
Love you, bud. There's a culture now in like dating where women will look down on guys who play video games at all regularly, but they're also like proudly watching The Office for the 800th time. And it's just like, at least when I play Call of Duty, it's different every time instead of like the same white noise. You know what I mean?
I think I've heard, thanks. I think I've heard that the reason we like to watch shows again and again is because we know how it wraps up and it's somehow calming.
Yeah. I always say that with comedy and when I write, I'm always imagining there's like a scale of funny to comfort, and like some shows are way more comfortable than they are funny, and that's why we enjoy them, or way more funny than they are comfortable. An example would be The Office is a perfect comfort to funny level. That's why it's so popular.
Not the English Office. That's uncomfortable.
No, English Office is wildly uncomfortable. This is a show that I think no one should ever watch and is despicable. But Friends, a lot of people like it. High comfort level, incredibly low funny. One of the least funny shows of all time.
I found it very funny.
Oh, I can't. Yeah. Seinfeld, high funny, low comfort. So there's different shows that are moving around. 30 Rock, high funny, low comfort, but maybe a little higher comfort. Big Bang Theory, all comfort, no funny. But you enjoy it for different reasons. You know, there's this like warmness to it. There's a whole community of people that can only fall asleep to the show Futurama.
There's people like that.
It's a whole community. Like they have online message boards and stuff, and their whole thing is it's the only show they can fall asleep to. It's like a phenomenon.
Oh, that's so sad.
Isn't it weird?
No, sad.
It is. That's the internet. That's the internet. Because if the internet wasn't a thing,
you would think, I got this weird thing that I do.
Yeah. But then you have a community, and then you encourage it, and then it becomes a thing in your head, and now you're part
of a group now.
Right.
I kind of feel like,
Yeah, and they're empowering you to be weirder. And the next thing you know, who knows what you're up to?
I'm going to say something vulnerable. And then if you guys want to save me by backing me up, I don't mean by defending me, but maybe by offering something similar. I'm sitting here, I feel so stupid that I've said like 2 or 3 things that I really regret in this show.
100%.
And for the past 10 minutes, I've been thinking, I should just tell Thursday to take that out, but he probably won't take it out. And I shouldn't be worried about taking it out. And so I feel so bad that I said the thing about the habit. And I feel so weird that I said the thing about the cowboy. Point is, like, there's so much of my life where I do things like that, and then I become aware of how concerned I am of the opinions of others, because it's really easy to say that you don't, and that sounds so virtuous, and then when you realize to the degree in which you do, that can be crippling.
You're trying to suck in the gut of your personality.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, we're doing it.
That was a great insight.
Good. Yeah.
I think that's. I want to commend you for your self-awareness in that, because this is something that I was just reflecting on yesterday, actually, because I was overly for sure, concerned about a conversation that I had with someone and some of the things that I had said in it. And maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I shouldn't have shown them this thing. Maybe I whatever it was. And then as I sat with that in prayer and tried to actually be open to some self-reflection in it, I realized I was not regretful of the thing that I said. I was regretful of what that person might think because of the thing that I said. And so I think that's really good self-awareness of it's maybe not even a problem of something that you said that you shouldn't have said, but a matter of you don't want to be seen in a certain light.
Yeah, that's right. Because if you all had laughed at what I said and we all had thought it was funny, I'd be like, yeah, go me.
Yeah.
Because it fell flat. I'm like, I'm embarrassed. And I see that was kind of silly. Yeah.
I do that constantly, where I'll have an interview or I'll do something and I'll like deeply wish it went differently for no reason. Like this is the comedy thing that happens. I will have a show and I will hate the show. I'll feel like it was work. I'll feel like the audience didn't laugh enough. I'll feel like certain jokes didn't land and things just were awkward in the room. I'm sweaty. I get off stage and I'm kind of like depressed and a little deflated. My ego's hurt. And I'm also feeling really guilty. These people pay money. I know like working class adults, they have to get a babysitter. They have to convince a friend or a wife or a girlfriend. They take all these risks. They drive all the way to see me. They pay $30. They have to buy drinks. And I didn't deliver. And I'm just like, I'm feeling like a bad person. And then someone will come up to me and go, that was the greatest show I've ever seen in my life. And my instinct is to be like, you're wrong, actually. That show sucked.
Is it more than that? Do you sometimes feel like they're lying just to be nice?
No, I think they're being totally genuine. And then I have to stop and think how I'm perceiving the situation is not how they do. Just because I think I did bad or I was silly doesn't mean that's how they perceive it.
The reason I brought that up is I know the idea, sometimes I'll be on stage and I'll do something, I'll come off and someone affirms me, I think, yeah, whatever. I dismiss it. And then someone criticizes me and I'm like, you could not be more right. Oh. You are the voice of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. I hate that. The criticism you didn't ask for is always tough because that one lands. If someone volunteers a criticism, it's so bold that you're like, there's no way they're lying. Like they just went in on me, But
how does that experience of getting up on stage and subjecting yourself to that kind of change you, affect you in the long run? Like, what does that do to a person?
Can I say one more thing before that question?
Please.
Because I really want to emphasize, Matt, I think it's really important that you took the break to say that, because as opposed to just having Josiah edit the things out, because what you just articulated is the experience of every one of your listeners. Like we all have this happen to us but even though we all have this happen, most of the time we're not self-aware enough. We're not aware of what's happening on the interior. And so we just kind of we get stuck in this loop of trying to get out of the embarrassment and trying to say something to make up for it and trying to, as opposed to just acknowledging like what's happening inside of me and how can I move past that? And so you articulated something that's happening inside of everybody that most people don't realize is happening inside of them. So I think it's really
Amen. And I appreciate the compliment. And I do think it is a gift that I have. I'm constantly like aware of all of the movements of my heart. It's also very exhausting.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel so I'm almost envious of like people like my wife who doesn't seem to like, I don't mean she's not a deep person. Here we go again, me saying things I'm going to regret.
Oh, man.
She's a beautiful woman, but she's not self-reflective. Like she'll often say to me that she doesn't know how she's doing until she speaks for a while. So, how you doing? I don't know. But then she'll talk, and then she'll only
she's
then will she
processor.
realize. Exactly. So I'm the exact opposite. And so I'm sometimes really envious of people who walk around not like continually looking within, which is also a problem, I guess, right?
Sometimes I'm like, I'm being so self-aware. This is great. And then I think, well, maybe someone who's not self-aware or as self-aware maybe that's self-aware isn't the term I want to use. Aware of self, maybe, because there's a less negative connotation. But like your wife, that maybe it's less of an ego thing or an ego thing for me, I'm afraid. And then someone like your wife is so dedicated to her children, her community, you, that she's focused on you guys and not herself. And then when it's prompted to be like, what's going on with you? She's like, well, I love everyone else and I'm focused on them. Let me take a moment to think about me. Whereas I'm constantly being like, what's going on in Shayne world? Even though I am Shayne. And I feel like I should be so focused on loving others that I don't even have the time to think about me.
Yeah, I'd say two things about that. I'd say like my wife is an incredibly humble person. So it's actually, I don't think I've really seen her embarrassed much because she doesn't overly obsess about things.
Yeah.
But I think if she were here, she would say that is something that she needs to work on, that she gets into this overdoer mode. So if there are fires to put out, she goes into like, we are going to take care of everything. And she can do that to her own detriment. So she may even like, maybe overlook the fact that she's not feeling well and start trying to help everyone, help me, help the kids, help friends, and then realize the toll it took on her. And so that's something she's trying to grow in, I think she'd say, if you're here.
I think it is good to be, I understand what you're saying about it being exhausting, but I think what's exhausting about it is not the awareness of what's happening inside of you. What's exhausting about it is getting stuck in that awareness and like when it becomes debilitating and when suddenly I'm not paying attention to the things happening around me because I'm so focused on what's happening inside of me.
Yes.
So it's the problem of being pulled out of the present, which is always the problem with anything, is when we're pulled out of the present. So if you can acknowledge, oh, that thing's happening inside of me. Interesting. And then
What do you do then?
well, you can, I don't know, make a mental note of it to pray about it later, or bring it up in the conversation. Like you said, like if you can't move past it and it's debilitating, then I think what you did was the exact right response.
One thing I've been doing more, and maybe this is to what you're saying, because I know the easy answer is like give it to the Lord or something, but quite honestly, something I've been doing.
What does that mean?
Well, here's
tangibly?
something I've been doing lately, and I've learned from John Eldridge on this, who hopefully will be on the show in January. He has this prayer. It's very simple. He says, Lord Jesus, I surrender everything and everyone to you. And I just spend like 5 minutes saying that. And I try to get really real with the Lord. I'm like, I'm going to give this to you just for a couple of minutes. Once we're done praying, I'm sure I will take all of it back from your beautiful, competent hands. But I know that just for a minute, I can give everyone and everything to you, Lord. I surrender it. And if I find that I can't surrender it, I surrender that. And I just spend some time giving everything to the Lord. And that is beautiful. And I think just that turning my posture towards the good Jesus like that, just that moment, I realize how much I'm carrying.
Interesting.
You know, like I'm gonna just go straight out to the Lord, and I'll just like get into that space, and then I'll be like, oh gosh, I am carrying so much, you know.
Yeah. There's an interesting quote from Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay. Who
Thought you were going to say Napoleon Dynamite.
No. Who died a Catholic, even though he was an enemy of the church for a long time. What a very beautiful, long story that ends well. But he received his last rites and confessed and said that the Catholic Church was correct and beautiful and good, and died in good standing with a priest with him. But in any case, he was a super mega genius, like incredible to the nth degree. Like he would meet like an enlisted man, so like a private. He's the most important person in the empire, and they would tell him about their wife or something. He would see them 10 years later and ask them about their wife. So this guy is like, he used to say that he could handle the pressure and he never lost sleep. He was a very good sleeper. He would sleep on the ground on battlefields and stuff just right away. And he used to say that he could open a drawer in his mind and put his worries and stuff in the drawer and close it, and it would be gone from him. And he could sleep, and then he would wake up and it would be a battle, and he would simply pick the drawer he wanted, open it, and then take on whatever he needed to take on. And I'm like, how do I do that? What is that about? Like, so I always think about that. Like, it's so interesting. He's like, oh yeah, I'm not troubled by the pressure of my life or all these other things. I simply open the drawer, I put it in, and I close the drawer, and I go to bed. And when I wake up in the morning, I choose the drawer and I open it, and I receive those problems.
Have you tried to do something like that?
I have tried. It is incredibly difficult. I think that a lot of it is that really smart people, a hack that they do is they imagine things in 3D space. So like
Jimmy Akin's like that. We had a whole discussion in our 6.5 hour interview in which he talked about how he does that.
Yeah, and that's a trick. It's how I learned how to memorize things. I have a really hard time memorizing things, but you imagine like a room you're incredibly familiar with. This room.
Memory palace stuff,
Yeah. And then you just assign numbers to the different, and you can see them in your head, and it allows you to recall them. And I've tried to do that with my problems and other things, a la Napoleon, but it's incredibly difficult.
One thing I used to do, and I'd like to pick up again, is someone told me about this. I was probably embarrassed to tell anybody that I was doing it, but it's called a worry journal.
Yeah.
So as I would lay in bed at night, I would just write on a piece of paper everything that's I wouldn't consider myself worrying about, but it's pressing upon me.
Yeah.
And I'm a little anxious about it. That was just a really nice way. It's kind of like the opposite of writing a to-do list. It's like, here are the things I don't need to worry about right now. Get it like that. What about yourself? Something similar or?
Well, I was thinking actually about what you said about the surrendering everything and everyone to him in this moment. I had an experience a few weeks ago where I had just heard this amazing quote by Saint Faustina, something in her diary about the Lord saying to her, part of what he said to her. You look confused.
Sorry, I thought I knew what you were going to quote, but now I think it's something else.
The Lord, part of what he said to her was, accept everything is from my hand. And I was like, that's great. That's beautiful. That's what I need to do. That's what I need to live. And I then got really frustrated with something that, with just like a community life thing, right? Something that one of the other nuns did. And I knew it was going to mean more work for me and it was going to whatever. And so I'm so frustrated. And then immediately I just like dive into this self-condemnation because I'm like, whatever she just did, I need to accept that as from the hand of the Lord. Like, I'm terrible at this. I can't accept the things around me as from the hand of the Lord. And the fact that I'm impatient and the fact that I'm annoyed that this happened and all of the whatever. And then I was talking to a priest friend about it, and I was like, I just don't know how to do this. I don't know how to accept everything as from the hand of the Lord because I'm just a terrible human being. And he said, you're right that you need to accept everything as from the hand of the Lord, including yourself and including your own emotions, including your own reactions, you know? And as I was thinking about that, I was remembering something that one of the other nuns had this reflection at some point about He Leadeth Me, Father Walter Chiswick. The whole point of He Leadeth Me is Father Walter Chiswick realizes that the situation in which we find ourselves is God's will for us. And all of the nuance, right, of God does not desire evil. God does not want evil, but God can work through evil. He can use the evil that's happened to us. He can use our suffering, so on and so forth. I want to make that very clear. But one of the other nuns, as she was reflecting on this concept from Father Walter Chiswick of the situation in which you find yourself is God's will for you, she realized, I am the situation in which I find myself. With all of my faults, with all of my sins, as I am today, I am the situation in which I find myself. Like, God could change you. God could He could make you entirely different. He could take away all your sin. He could take away all your, like that, right? He's God. He has the power to do that. We have to cooperate. But anyways, I was thinking of that. We are the situation in which we find ourselves, and we have to accept ourselves in the present moment as from the hand of the Lord. And so, yeah, just that prayer of, I surrender all of this to you. You know, I think going back to your question of, well, what do you do in a time like that? As you, like, how do you stay in the present? How do you have that self-awareness and not be debilitated by it? I think it's a matter of a very brief, wow, Lord, I said something stupid. Please use that for the glory of your kingdom in some way, and grant me whatever graces I need through it. Purify whatever's causing this discomfort, like whatever in me needs healed, you know what it is, and just heal it, right? We don't have to figure out what needs healed. We can just ask for healing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I guess it seems so obvious. You hear it and you're like, oh yeah, that's Christianity. And yet it doesn't like occur to you to be like, hey, help, you know, to just reach out for help at any moment. It always feels like I need to wait until like a close family member, a member of mine became terminally ill recently. And, you know, at that point you're like, okay, now here we are, game time to get in there with the Lord and ask for help and grace and all this other stuff. But like, also, if I embarrass myself, I could do the same thing. Like, why am I waiting for the worst case scenario to reach out for help as if I'm annoying or not even not worthy, but just you're like, I don't even know how to describe it. This is a very lame way to describe it. I'm going to do it anyway. You know, in a video game, when you have a super move and you're like, I got to save it for the right moment. And then you beat the level and you're like, I never used the super move. Right. I made it so much harder on myself. I could have used it like 3 times, you know, but you saved it for the perfect moment. And of course that moment never arrives because no moment is perfect.
That's good.
And so there's this part of you where you're like, I have a super move. At any point I could reach out to my Lord and Savior and ask for healing, understanding, peace. And I'm like only waiting for the perfect moment instead of being like, wow, I feel stupid on this podcast. Help me out, you know, give me peace, do something with this. I don't know. That's something I do that's very dumb, where I'm just like waiting for that perfect moment as opposed to simply just giving it up, you know? But
I think, too, what do you think about this? That healing is not synonymous with growing in holiness. And we sometimes equate the two, that as I experience psychological healing, that this is somehow synonymous with my journey into the Lord. And yet I think that some of the things that you and I struggle with today were things that we struggled with when we were children, and in all likelihood will be things you will never get over. And that's okay. Like, evil's weird, and the Lord seems to be able to use it the way he wishes. And so just like, I think I'm quoting Father Mark Foley here. He said something to the effect of, working on ourselves can sometimes be an insidious form of self-hatred. Yeah. Whereas if I don't try to overcome these things, like these many things, and I think sometimes when you say the word like the Lord can free us from our sins, or we can be sometimes that word sins, I think, is too churchy, too religious-y, but it's other things too. And it's like your idiosyncrasies that you're embarrassed about, or the way that when you smile, you remind yourself of your mother and you don't like looking like your mother. That's just a random example, but anything, right? Or your accent, or how you look, or just these the ways you feel like you annoy people and you don't know why yet. Like all those gajillion things that sink into us like splinters. He was saying, like, to not try to overcome them. Don't make that the point of the spiritual life. Like the point of the spiritual life is to be in communion with the good Jesus, and to pray for the grace to make the right decision in the moment. And like that's in a way, it sounds like fatalistic or exhausting to say you're never going to overcome this stuff. Yeah, never. That's right. So the person watching now, like, when am I going to overcome my temptation to look at porn? When am I going to overcome? When is my relationship with my mother going to be better, or whatever? It's like, maybe never.
yeah,
But so there's a sense in which that feels terrifying, but there's another sense in which you go, okay, cool. So I'll never be over this. That's right, never. You'll always be kind of annoying to people.
Yeah.
Now, love Jesus and make the right decision.
A little bit of Camus mix.
that mean?
Camus, the philosopher.
C-A-M-U-S?
Oh, Camus.
Yeah. It's just a little bit of
I don't know. I wouldn't want to.
absurdism. Not to like, but when I was a secular person, absurdism was like very good to me because it was happy nihilism. Because nihilism is nothing matters, and yada, yada, yada. We all know what nihilism. But absurdism is the idea that nothing matters, so go dance, go love, go be with people and do good things and enjoy beauty.
I think
YOLO.
that is.
Yeah.
I think that is so superficial.
100%.
Yeah.
But there's a part where...
But I get the point. I get the analogy. It's like, if the Lord loves me and loves me even like this, then I can be free to be like this.
Exactly.
But I love what you said, Mother, about, if I'm being cool, we all understand, it sounds very like maybe cliche wisdom in the church to say, everything comes from the hand of the Lord, accept what he gives you. It never occurred to me, really, in the way that you put it, to accept everything, including myself. Men, do you feel stuck in old idols or burdened by the pharaohs of our time? Do you know that you're capable of so much more than you're giving today? Exodus 90 is the #1 freedom app to help you become the man you were created to be. Exodus 90 is a powerful 90-day journey to freedom in Jesus Christ, and it starts on January 20th. I've met so many men from all around the world who have been blessed by Exodus 90. So download the Exodus 90 app today to join tens of thousands of men from all around the world for Exodus 90, starting January 20th, leading up to Easter Sunday. We all have pharaohs and idols in our lives, things that hold us back from being who we were created to be, things that keep us from love. It's time to leave our pharaohs and idols behind to journey to uncommon freedom in Jesus Christ. Join the men of Exodus 90 and Father Boniface Hicks, Benedictine monk and renowned spiritual director, who is the spiritual guide for Exodus 90 this year. We will establish daily habits of prayer, discipline, and brotherhood as we journey to greater freedom in Jesus Christ. So, go to exodus90.com/Matt to learn more about Exodus 90. That's exodus90.com/Matt to join tens of thousands of men from all around the world for Exodus 90, starting Monday, January 20th, and leading up to Easter Sunday. I know Mother Thérèse of Lisieux, one of your favorites. Her little way is so... A lot of what we're talking about. She talks a lot about putting up with herself, just as I am. All right, Thérèse isn't really one of your favorites. Why?
It's interesting that you ask why, because a priest friend of mine several years ago... Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to publicly admit for the first time that I don't dislike Thérèse.
Ooh.
First time on your show. So feel honored.
Done.
I don't like, and I think this is probably the case for most people who say they don't like Thérèse. I don't like what people have done with Thérèse. I don't like people who write about Thérèse. I don't like the people who write about her. I often don't like what they write.
Yeah. Because she's the
Because
least
anytime
sugary
I've read-
sweet saint out there.
Right, but
and
that's
yet
how she's
depicted
portrayed.
very
And I'm
often
like,
that.
ugh. And because when I've read anything about her spirituality, I love it. I love her spirituality. I think I just haven't, and I just kind of like push back because I don't want to jump on the train that so many people are on of just.
I know what you mean. I was
Yeah.
like that with Louis de Montfort back in the day when everyone was on this Louis de Montfort kick, and I would read it and I didn't want to pretend that I liked it. Like, I don't like it. I don't like how he writes. I don't like it. And I think that was true. I think I didn't like it. And I have grown into his writings a little bit. But it's also the case that no one should feel the pressure to, resonate with the writings of any particular saint, right?
That's why we have so many.
Yeah, and so many devotions and
100%. Thérèse is my confirmation saint.
I know.
It's okay. Yeah, she's sent roses on roses, and has interceded for me in like a very crazy way.
I've received roses from her multiple times.
Yeah.
My friends who love Saint Thérèse, they're like super jealous of this, right? They're like, "Why you don't even like her? Why do you get roses from her?" And I'm like, "Well,
trying
she
to
likes
win
me
you
a lot."
over.
Yeah,
The first rose I received from her is the rose on my face.
it's true.
So very cool. But yeah,
it hurt a lot.
it did quite a lot, actually. But wasn't one of her trials the fact that it just seemed like no other nuns liked her, and she felt that?
I can't speak to that.
I think so. I mean, I think that she felt disliked by. I don't know. This is maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I'm like, is this just a nun thing? Do nuns are just like, oh, Thérèse, what are you up to? You know?
Can I tell you what ChatGPT told me about Mother Natalia and Thérèse of Lisieux?
Yes, but first I realized I cut myself off. Well, I was going to say one of my priest friends several years ago said he was like, I know why you don't like Thérèse. And I was like, why? And he's like, you're just like her. And I was like, oh, but I don't think he's wrong.
I don't think he's wrong either.
That's
that's a
real.
beautiful compliment. Yeah. So I said, does Mother Natalia love Thérèse of Lisieux? Are you ready for this? This is what ChatGPT said. Yes, Mother Natalia, the abbess of Christ the Bridegroom Monastery, has spoken fondly of Thérèse of Lisieux in various interviews and talks. She has expressed her admiration of St. Therese's little way. Mother Natalia's connection with St. Thérèse is part of a broader love, many in religious life, and here they're just guessing. But
Wow, so ChatGPT
is
totally
wrong.
inaccurate.
Yeah. So
That's
not the
so
abbess.
funny.
Case in point. Yeah, I'm not the abbess of the community. Praise
All
God.
right,
I hope
Christ
I never
the
am.
Bridegroom. How wild that I just typed your first name, Mother Natalia, and it knew you were from that.
That's wild. Yeah, it's crazy. Thérèse for me is important because I wanted to pick like Linus. Wait, who's the Roman soldier who stabbed
Longinus.
Longinus? Yeah, very heavy metal saint. Went on to get his tongue cut out and smash idols. Love that guy. Or like Dismas was a huge one I wanted, the thief on the cross, all these manly saints, but then there's something that is missing for me in my life that I need to practice, which is gentleness. And that's like Thérèse's whole thing. She's just like so wildly gentle. And like her quote about God's mercy being like a raging inferno and all the sin you could possibly do is like a droplet of water falling into it. Like it just consumed by God's mercy and deleted instantly. Like you could never compete with the amount, and all those things are like so beautiful to me. And you do have this air of like gentleness that like ebbs and flows off of you. Like just to be close to you is to feel like a little bit of like a hug or something. You know what I mean? Like that nice, like that rock that a kid has, or in their parents, you know.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, that like I go to
Stability.
play and then I'm scared and I have a home base to always come back to. And that's like sort of Thérèse. There's this infinite gentleness and like loving feminine energy that is maybe absent from my life in certain ways, and something that I aspire to have because it's so far away from my experience. Whereas I want like St. George. You know, I'm like, let's stab dragons and like have quotes about like killing heretics or whatever crazy stuff. But no, just the little girl who prayed for murderers and like was just so gentle and loving and like struggled with herself. That's like that's what I need, not what I want.
That's really interesting. Can I ask you a very personal question?
Please.
Okay. Are you different with other people than you are with me?
No.
Because I would describe you. I, in fact, have described you to people as like, I'm like, Shayne is just so gentle and so sweet. And so it's fascinating to me that you say that you like gentleness is something that you're very lacking, because I don't see that at all.
It's like a deliberate thing. It's like how for a time when I first started doing comedy, I had all these people give me all this advice and I got in my head and I would wear long sleeves and I would never not wear my glasses and I shaved my facial hair and I had a really nice haircut all the time. So as to sort of like make myself palatable. And then as I've grown into myself, especially as I've made my conversion and felt more comfortable with me, I've sort of been like, oh, this is what I look like. This is what Shayne looks like when he's just being himself. And like, it's not to say I don't want hair again at some point or whatever, but like this would be me right now. And I sort of took that leap. Recently, when I did my special, I didn't wear the glasses, didn't have the fancy haircut. I wasn't traditionally handsome, and I am kind of nervous how that'll be received, but I do that. And so the gentleness is like something that I practice like deliberately. Yeah, I'm deliberately gentle with you, whereas what comes natural to me would be simply not being social at all.
Is that right? You seem like a very social person.
Yeah.
No, it's like I am making myself do it. And I almost liken it to like the way I approach fitness. Like I hate the gym. It sucks. But if you don't get interested in suffering, if you don't find a way to enjoy it, you're not going to excel.
But is it something like with the gym, right? You might not want to get up and put your sneakers on and go work out. But once you're there, you're happy to do it. Is that like that?
100%.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want to get up. I don't want to do things. I don't want to perform. I don't want to be social. I don't want to text my friends because it's hard and I'm a very out of sight, out of mind guy. I don't want to call my dad. I don't want to see what my mom is up to because it's exhausting sometimes. And just to say that feels bad. It sucks to be tired to talk to someone you love. But then I make myself do it and I'm always feeling fulfilled by that. But it is exhausting at times. But yeah, it's all very deliberate for me. I think my natural inclination is to be very closed off and sort of just like in my head. When I was a kid, I think I've said this on the podcast, I was addicted to daydreaming to the point that it became like a problem that people were considering seeking medical help over. I would sit like and just daydream for hours and hours. Because I can induce lucid dreams. So when I daydream, it's like a full-on dream in my head that I can see and like really get into. And there are characters that have been recurring since I was a child, and it's a pretty cool place to hang out. But I can't because then I'll just be like sword fighting or whatever, instead of like paying attention to your girlfriend or calling your mother or doing the dishes. So yeah, it's a struggle. It's like embarrassing, honestly. And then you tell your friends, you're like, I love you. I'm sorry I don't call you. And they're like, what's the deal? And you're like, oh, it's exhausting. And then your friend's like, what? It's exhausting to talk to me? And you're like, well, yeah, but I love you. It's like do you know, maybe I've said this on the podcast before, the types of fun, type 1, 2, and 3 fun. So I love type 3 fun. That's my favorite type of fun. Type 1 fun is this. I'm with people I love. Like, this is exciting. There's so many things about this to me that are really great. It's like, I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of you. I respect you as a man, and I'm so interested in what you have to say. I love you and like watch all your videos. So I'm a fan. I'm a friend. This is great. It's just pleasurable. That's type 1. Okay. Type 2 is the gym. Like, it can be fun in the moment, but it is difficult. But you suffer a little and you feel better, right? But it also it ebbs and flows between type 1 and a sort of suffering. That's the gym. That's maybe sports at times or whatever. And then there's type 3 fun. This is like mountain climbing. Like it's a blizzard. One of my friends is literally dying. We don't know if we're going to make it. I have frostbite. It's an adventure and it is not fun. It's terrifying. It's wild. It's crazy.
But that's the most fun to reflect upon, right?
Yes. Yes. And then later it's the most fun. That's type 3 fun. I love that. Recently I got asked a question on my Instagram or whatever about my favorite childhood memories. And my favorite childhood memories are me and my brothers, anytime there was like a legit blizzard, where I'm from, it's like we've gotten like 9 feet of snow before. Crazy amounts. Like snow in your door, kill you type of snow. It would be blizzards and we would purposefully release our Chow, our dog, who was not trained. He would just run away, right? And then we would spend all day trying to get him back into the house. So my parents would think he like escaped, but we purposefully let him out in the blizzard because we wanted to have an adventure. And like, it wasn't fun.
And the dog lovers stopped listening again.
Yeah.
They had just tuned back in.
Well, he's a Chow, so he's this big fluff. He loved the winter. But like, we would be tracking him through the snow for miles. We'd be so cold. We'd be hungry and miserable, and he would bite you. You would be like trying to find him, and he was so smart. Like he'd make his tracks go into the wood, and he would double back. So you'd be looking for him, and he'd come out of nowhere and like grab your leg, and you'd fall, and he'd be dragging you around. He's a big Chow. They're really fun dogs, but he would never hurt you. But you would. It was a whole thing, and then we're like these kids. You're trying to tackle this big fluffy dog to capture him, and at the end we would have to both carry him. You know, like he's in a stretcher or something. But it was an all-day adventure, and it was kind of miserable. Like your hands are freezing. I have these memories of being like, are we going to get home? But those are my favorite memories. And we would do it on purpose. So like, that's the thing, the type 1, 2, and 3 fun. When we talk about like never overcoming our issues or whatever, I always think like God set up life so that it's type 3 fun. Like when you apprehend the kingdom of heaven, how much fun is it going to be to look back on your suffering and be like, yeah, let's go.
That's a great analogy.
I did it, you know? But
so often we're trying to turn God's type 3 fun into type 1 fun or something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing with people in church where they're like, oh, it's difficult. Like parts of Mass are boring, or I'm like, it's not fun. And it's like, it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be true, and it's supposed to be good. Fun, he never at any point was like, this is going to be fun. And in fact, he was like, I think a lot of people are going to hate you, you know? So like, why do we want it to be fun? Or why do we want it to be easy or anything like that? It's type 3 fun. You're climbing the mountain. Your friend is dying. You're pulling him up. You don't know if you're going to make it. But when you get up there and you take that photo and you come down and you're like, yo, we did that. That's going to be awesome, you know?
So this started with you asking him about him being gentle and social, because I would say the same thing. He's super social. So I find it, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know you, I don't know you. But I guess just seeing how social you are with people, I would find that hard to believe that you're like that. But I think I understand now. You have to make yourself do it. And then once you're there. So do you have some kind of rule of life where you know it's not good for me just to lay in bed and watch TV? I'll spiral into a terrible place. So therefore, every day I have to do such and such?
I loved COVID. I did COVID in New York. Oh, we probably bleep it, Josiah. But bleep it for YouTube. But
did COVID?
The time I was in New York and everyone was just like, we're all locked in our houses, and I was like, let's go! Like I was so stoked. I just play video games, writing, reading. I could be in my house for a year right now with no extra things, and I would entertain myself the whole time. I would have the best time of my life. So yeah, I do have to have rules.
But would you continue to, or would you go to a bad place eventually?
I don't think I would.
So then why don't you do that?
Because I just don't want to become a mad wizard. I don't want to be that guy with big long eyebrows and I'm in my house and I'm like, have you read the Summa? Like I'm like crazy, you know? I just don't want to be that. I think that God implicates everyone in the plan of salvation. And we're supposed to commune with each other and be social. That was something from Seek that I was like, oh, a huge part of of my Catholic journey is realizing like I have to go to these places with others. I can't just do this by myself, which was my original plan. I was like, oh, I'll just go to church. I'll go by myself. It'll be a very personal journey. It's not personal. It is, but it's not. Like I cannot do this without you, you know? And I think that's fair to say. I need other Christians. Like you just do. And so, yeah, I've decided like, oh, I should be more social. So if I get invited somewhere, I'll put down the video game. That's always the rule. If like someone wants me to come outside, I'll go. But I do allow myself certain days to stay in. But yeah, I have to like make rules or whatever. When I was a kid, I would play video games hours and hours and hours, or I would just sit and read or I daydream. But if a friend shows up and he's like, we're going to X place, the rule was always, okay, you have to go. And then you come back and you just jump back into the game or whatever. But it's tough. I could become a wizard. I would just be at home and I would be insane and I would play video games 12 hours a day and only leave to work.
To the point about being social, and I want to ask you what it's like being in a monastery with a few other women that you have to do life with forever, right? But I think part of the exhaustion for me, because you were talking about it being exhausting, is it really just doesn't feel natural to have more than 3 or 4 friends, like close friends, right? But the phone gives us the illusion that we can be in touch with everybody all of the time. And it's tiring. And you're a very popular fella. I'm sure you get a lot of people who text you and you're like, look, it's not that it's not like I'm actively trying not to be your friend.
Yeah.
I just can only put this active energy into the people that make sense right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in this situation now where because of my wife's health, we had to move from here to Florida. I'm now meeting other families who are so beautiful. And these are the people I now need to invest in. And I feel that too. I'm like, oh, now I feel this pressure to report back to families and friends who still live up in Steubenville. But I mean, in all honesty, it sounds harsh, but like the gravity of my life needs to shift over here now.
Yeah. It's hard because it feels like time correlates to love or attention correlates to love, which is not the case.
Okay.
We don't text almost ever. Right. I love you as much as ever.
Yeah.
Why not? Same here. Like, and yet you're like, oh, it feels like time and attention correlates. And so if you're not getting the time and attention, you're like, do they even like me? You know, like, especially I do that, which is unfair because then I don't give people time and attention. And then meanwhile, when someone I love doesn't, I'm like, oh, so they just hate me. Even yesterday, I texted Josiah something and he thumbsed up the text and I was like, how dare you? Thumbs up, that's catty and rude, you know? And then I was like, oh, obviously he's like working. Why am I being weird about this?
Now, I'm sure, I'm sure in one sense, being in a monastery with people who have vowed to die there, in a way, that's like, these are my friends now. And we live in such a disposable culture. There's something beautiful about having to be there for each other till the end. And yet at the same time, I'm sure, I don't know, in regular life, at least for me, it's kind of nice to be like, all right, this isn't working anymore. This doesn't seem healthy anymore. So we're going to, be friends, love the person, but we're going to not really spend a lot of time with that person anymore. Like, what's it like?
But you can't do that with your wife.
No.
So
I can, but I would ruin my life and hers and my children's.
Right.
So I choose not to.
So
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something very different. And I think I've probably talked about this in other interviews, but there's something very different living in a place in which, because when I was in college, I never even considered the possibility of joining a sorority, right? You know, you asked if I, as a kid, like gravitated more towards the male friendships. And I was like, absolutely, my whole life. And similarly in college, I was like, why would I ever want to live with a bunch of women? But there's something different about living with a bunch of women who are all striving for holiness. And like we have problems, we have disagreements, we hurt each other often. But there's also like, we constantly want to be like asking forgiveness and healing the things that have been broken and all of that. And so it's living in a monastery is type 3 fun.
Yeah.
You know,
no.
Like it's hard and relationships are hard and there's no running away from it, especially in a monastery as opposed to an active religious community. because in a monastery, like the people that you live with are the people that you pray with, are the people that you work with. Like we don't even have apostolates that we go out to, you know, like everything is together. And I go across the street to my little pint studio to record a 10-minute episode, and then I'm back with everyone, you know? And so, yeah, I think it's type 3 fun. Like it's difficult, but there's also, it's the deepest joy. And I haven't always been in a place in which I really like trusted and leaned into my sisters. But I'm very much in that place now. Like the thing that happened yesterday that I was talking about, where it's like, did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Like, I was just like, I need to process this with somebody. And I turned to my sister, one of my sisters in the community, to process it, as opposed to looking outside the community. And there's very much this idea, we've talked about it in our community before. There's this idea of like, you know, like the chocolate fountains or whatever that flow down.
Fondue.
Fondue. There's like this top tier is our relationship with the Lord, our spousal union with him. And whatever flows out to that needs to go into our monastic community. And then what flows out from that can go to the friends in the community outside of the monastery. But it really,
that's beautiful. Yeah.
When it's not rightly ordered, we can feel the strain within the community.
There's a Foo Fighters song that says, you know, is someone getting the best of you?
Yeah.
It's a great song. And that can be taken in two different ways, right? I guess. But is someone getting the best of you, which means are you allowing them to irritate you?
Yeah.
But then also is who's getting the best of you? And just like you said, your spousal union, you don't then like spread that energy outside of the monastery.
Right.
It should go right into the monastery. And as a married man, like the best of me should go to my wife, and then from us to the children, and then to our outer community. But how many times is the temptation to then take the best of me into wherever else, like my mates, my work, some other woman, some other fella, if you're a woman, you know? Yeah.
That's it. When I first began converting, I think Father Mike Schmidt, Father Mike, he did a homily where he spoke about how you should put your marriage above your children.
100%.
And I remember as a secular person being like, this is the opposite of logic. Like, what are you talking about? But then as you begin to like reflect on it, you know, you put God above everything. But if you put God above everything, God is calling you to be the best husband you can be. So by being the best
That's exactly
person who's doing it, it cascades down into the best verse. So you don't realize like, oh, by putting this person first, I'm securing my ability to love and apprehend that relationship as best as humanly possible by first doing the order of operations. And I love my wife as best as I can. Now our marriage is solid. It's the foundation by which my children feel safe, you know?
Yeah, I've often said that one of the best ways my dad loved me was by loving my mum really well.
Exactly. That's huge. With like it's interesting as I've realized the marriage is what the kids need. I mean, they need their dad and their mom, but more importantly, they need the marriage.
Do you I don't know if you remember this, so I don't mean to assume, but I'll speak for myself. I remember times as a child hearing my dad making my mum belly laugh in the bedroom. Like it may have been morning or nighttime, and she'd be almost wetting herself laughing so loud. And I just remember feeling terribly safe. It wasn't always like that, but it was that quite a bit. I mean, there were other issues, but as far as my dad and loving my mum, he's really done a good job, I think.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think where we need to, something that we need to remind ourselves of as well, you know, as you're talking about, like that energy could be going to your friends or to your work or whatever. And what we need to remember is this also applies to the things that people are asking of us that are very good things, because this is the temptation at the monastery, and one that we have at times fallen into, and we're finally like kind of learning our groove in is, you know, people want us to come direct this retreat or to be a spiritual director for this person or whatever it is. And like, those are good things that they're asking for. But if our community life can't take it, then it's not good for us to do it. And I remember I told someone recently, and I got this mindset actually from a monk friend of mine. I told someone recently who asked me to be their spiritual director, like, I'm just maxed out. I can't take any more spiritual children, which is that's the most painful thing for me to say no to. It's because I know it's such a need. And I lament to God about this. I'm like, you put this need out there. You need to fill it. Like, what are you doing, God? Anyways, he's taking care of it. But someone who recently asked me, I said, I think I'm a good spiritual mother to all of my spiritual children. If I take on one more person, I will be a bad spiritual mother to all of them. It's not like one of them is going to suffer because I take this person on, or I'm not going to be a good spiritual mother to the new person that I take on. It's that I'm going to be spread thin enough that I will just not be a good mother to any of them, you know?
Like the night waitress at Denny's. You know, the rush comes in and she's by herself at 2 a.m. and she's got too many tables and she's like, everyone gets bad service now. You know what I mean?
It's so good. It's so good.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
That is so good. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's good to know. I mean, you're doing them such a kindness by first hurting yourself, by accepting the pain of rejecting someone else, which I think is world-endingly worse than being rejected. I would rather be rejected 1,000 times than reject someone and watch their pain. That's so brutal. So you're doing someone such a beautiful gift by taking on that pain and being honest, which is so hard. It would be so much easier for you to just do a bad job and say yes, right? And then you're setting them out to go somewhere else for spiritual direction where someone who can give them what they need will. And now you're also being there and prioritizing the people who you have. That's like a very self-sacrificing, beautiful thing you're doing.
Do you have a difficult time saying no to things?
No. But I don't, but I do. I think it just depends. I think that I'm a fairly confrontational person at times. I have no problem with confrontation. You told a story about yelling at a man on an airplane.
Hitting him, yelling at him.
Yeah, watching.
It's a good story. A guy was watching porn in front of me.
It's crazy.
On his phone, and it was a hardcore sex scene. I smacked him in the arm because my kids were behind him, and I said very loudly, "Could you stop watching pornography in front of my children?" He did not look at me again.
Yeah.
He definitely turned it off. Unlike you, I wish I were more confrontational. I'm not. It makes me feel very anxious. I wish I was more like you.
I think I might have gone with what you did. You're on an airplane with your kids. It's not time to...
What I'm trying to say is you may not have felt as like, oh my gosh.
Oh, no. Yeah. I would have been
that's a weakness in me. I'm glad you have that strength.
I probably would have added a little like stand up and find out or just sit there but I can't help myself. Yeah, I've done that. Similar things. I have a really big pet peeve in movie theaters. I don't like to watch movies because if someone uses their phone, it makes me crazy. I have pulled the phone out of someone's hand and slid it down my aisle in a full theater, so they have to go through people to get their own phone
them
now.
To stop first? Or
Yes. I said, hey, no texting during this movie, because they were texting like as the credits were beginning. I said, you're not going to do that during the movie, are you? And the guy was like, no. And then he was like showing his girlfriend something, and I was like, this is mine now. And I just slid it along the thing. And like, that's really confrontational, maybe a bit. I shouldn't be violent or whatever. But
I'd like to say thank you on behalf of all moviegoers.
Yeah, it just makes me
crazy.
Another
thing that makes me crazy is that when people think it's okay in an airplane to push in front of other people, those people also should be exported to Siberia.
Yeah.
What I do, all right, is as soon as I hear the bing, I get up and I stand right out there and I let everyone else go ahead of me, and I just block those awful human beings who push ahead on planes. Back to what I was asking though. So you don't find it difficult to say no? You said you're a confrontational person.
No, not really.
I don't find it all. I think there's a middle ground here, as in many areas in life. I'm really good at saying no. I say no to everything and I have no problem saying no. All the time, constantly. I get so many emails a day. We get requests for people to come on the show every single day, multiple times, and I just ignore most people, and then I say no to the rest. But I think what I need in order to be okay with that is some kind of process to discern. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be like uber spiritual. It just has to, I think I need to set in place some way to discern whether this is a good idea or not, even if it doesn't have to take a lot of time. Otherwise, how do I know if I'm listening to the voice of the Lord or not?
Yeah.
What do you think?
When I'm going to say no, my first thought is, can I alter this plan so that we both still get what we want? And if I can't think of a way to alter it, I say no. So like you ask me to get lunch tomorrow. I don't want to do that. Can you do it Thursday? Like I'm trying to alter so that we come to some kind of compromise, and that's my process. I'll almost always think, how can we both get what we want here? Very often we can't though, and I just say no. But at least I feel like I've tried.
That's really nice of you. That you're way nicer than me. Let me share this text exchange that just took place last night. All right. So someone, I won't say who.
What are you wearing?
That is not what happened. So someone writes to me and asks me if I would like to do a live stream on their channel. And I write back, amazing, but I just don't want to do it for reasons I didn't give immediately. I said, amazing, but I don't have time tonight. Thanks for the invite. Oh, I didn't mean tonight. And then I say, honestly, live streams cause me enough anxiety to say no, so I'm going to say no. And he's like, it wouldn't be live.
What does that mean?
And then I said, yeah, and then that's why I said no.
yeah. You're like,
I don't want to do it. No.
Yeah, I get asked to do so many podcasts.
And that can be okay. Don't they say no is a full sentence?
Yeah, 100%. It is hard though sometimes. I don't have a problem saying it. I have a problem with the afterwards, where I do feel like I'm disappointing people in a way where I'm like, well, maybe I could have given this like open mic comic some of my time and done 30 minutes of their podcast.
I actually really like it when people say no to me. Like when you and I first met and I said, when you come here, would you mind doing a stand-up at the Cigar Lounge?
Yeah.
Honestly, no, I'm trying to something. And I just love that straight talk. It makes me feel free to say similarly straight things.
Yeah.
Well, and it makes you feel free to make the request. Like I'm much more willing to ask someone to do something if I know they're the type of person who will say no.
That's why when I asked you earlier,
yeah.
I said, are you okay if Shayne comes on the show? And you were like, yes. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah,
I don't have to now be like, are you sure?
Yeah.
That's so exhausting.
Ugh.
When you can just trust people.
Nothing's worse than someone saying yes to something and you realize they did it out of obligation like halfway through. And you're like, oh no.
Are we about halfway through this episode?
Do you want
Because
to be?
there's something I want to say.
Say it.
I'm just kidding. He said,
I missed the joke.
When someone, there's nothing worse than like someone says yes and then like halfway through it you realize that they didn't actually want it.
Yeah. Having a bad time.
You guys are very quick. I'm very proud of both of you. Let's go. I missed that.
Sorry, sweaty pumps.
Yeah, me too.
And anything, I want to ask him about his stand-up special, but anything else like on that topic about saying no to folks? So I can see how it would be more difficult for you because I could even see people, immature people, maybe even kind of expecting something from you because you're a religious in a way they may not expect it from me. Like, what else are you doing? You're just praying.
Yep. I get that a lot. So I hate saying no to people. I have my whole life. And yeah, like I'm such a people pleaser. It's funny, as you were talking about the airplane story, I was thinking of my own airplane story where I was flying next to Father Boniface somewhere, and I was in the middle seat because I usually take the middle seat on planes. And then Father Boniface was on my left, and then someone else was on my right. We were in the front row, which means there's no tray table in front of us. The tray table comes out of the arm, right? This is like a 4-hour flight that we're on. The person to my right pulls the tray table out of the arm. No. Sorry. I pull my tray table out and I have mine out. And then while my tray table's out, this man puts his arm on the armrest that the tray table had come out of. Okay, that's fine.
Oh, but then you can't put it back.
Right. So then I'm done with the tray table and I'm just kind of like not sure what to do. And Father Boniface notices this. And so he's like, you can put your tray table back. And I was like, I can't. That man's arm is there. And he was like, well, just ask him to move it. And I was like, don't you understand? That would clearly ruin his life. and Father Boniface is just like,
has a family.
Right? And Father Boniface is just looking at me like I have a third eye. And he's like, just nudge his arm a little bit, and he'll like, or just start to put the table
I was just
up,
going to say, if
and
you
he'll
just lift
notice.
it up
And
and you
I
go,
was
oh,
I just love that the two of you are having this conversation, clearly whispering while this
the man
man's
has-
completely
He
oblivious.
has like ear.
Oh,
this
ear
dude sitting
things
there
in or
like,
whatever.
this Muslim lady's crazy right now.
And Father Boniface is and I was like, no, it's okay. I can do it. It's just a few hours. So I just leave the tray table down. And then at some point he gets up to go to the bathroom, and so I like throw the tray table in. But I'm like, yeah, I would not throw someone's phone down the aisle. So I'm very much a people pleaser. It's very difficult for me to say no.
I find that not hard to believe, but I see you as being very. You seem to speak your mind very freely around me and other people that I meet. You seem very beautifully free. So it surprises me that you also have this trait.
So much of that is a learned freedom and a recent freedom.
Okay.
But it's also and a practiced freedom. Like that day I was in not a good place, and I was feeling a lot of insecurities and things like that day on the plane. And so that comes out in my just like, I don't want to disturb anyone, because then it feeds into the insecurities. But something I have going for me is I'm under obedience to someone. And so we're just not giving talks right now. We're not going out for talks because, you and I kind of already have an agreement for Pints with Aquinas, but in general, we're not going out to give talks because our community is just like, there's too much going on and things like that, and we just can't right now. And so I have the freedom to say, no, we're not giving talks right now or whatever. But I've also started to have kind of a better discernment of what is this person owed. And someone who I've never met before who reaches out from wherever is owed something different than my mom when she reaches out. Like we don't have to give everyone all of the reasons, all of the explanations. Like you said, no is a full sentence. And I do try to say no charitably or to express. So one rule I have is I try very, very hard to not say things that are not true. So I'm not even going to say, I wish I could do this, but I can't, if I don't actually wish I could do it.
Yeah.
I might say, I'm sorry to disappoint you, because that is true.
Yeah.
And so I try to be very attentive to the language that I'm using when I'm saying no, because I want to be sincere and I don't want them to respond with, anyways.
That's beautiful. I'm going to say something, and I'm afraid you might too quickly dismiss it, but try to hear it.
Okay.
Please stop doing pint stuff whenever you want.
Sure.
I love you. I never want anything I ask of you to be a burden.
Yeah.
Can I interject? You have to keep doing it.
Well, I don't
Because
know
you're
who
a
to
nun,
listen
and
to
what
now.
else could you possibly
You
have
live
on?
so far away, I hardly ever see you. It's just I get mother time via YouTube.
But like I had someone called the monastery recently, and they were asking for my advice on like what they should be doing for work and things like that. This is someone I've never met before. This is someone, and I think a year ago, I would have spent 30 minutes on the phone with them trying to help them discern what they should do for work.
Mm-hmm.
And instead I was just like, because I also have to think, like, how does the Lord want me to be using my time right now? And so I guess that's the other part of it, is I try to be open to what is he asking me to do in this moment? Because sometimes he is asking you to be with the person and be on the phone with them. But it was very clear to me that like, I don't have anything to offer this woman. I don't know her. I don't know her background. I don't know what she should be doing for work. And so I just had to tell her like, I'm sorry. I don't have anything. I don't have any kind of input here. And that was that. And we ended the phone
I
call.
think part of the difficulty is you have different people who in justice should receive different things from you.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're all coming at you through the same medium, it feels like email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I also think, C.S. Lewis, he used to say that he would always reply to every letter he received.
I do that.
And I think, okay, well, maybe there's an argument for that.
I
Maybe
shouldn't
there
have said
isn't.
that on this
Oh,
podcast.
no, you
That was a
shouldn't
terrible
have.
idea.
Quick,
But
change your
I'm
mind.
also like,
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
I'm also like 9 months behind in letters, and I have over 100 to respond to. So I will respond, but it might take me 3 years to respond to
Oh,
you. So
bless
keep that
you.
in
We
mind.
are you typing and printing, or are we handwriting?
Man.
We gotta get to typing and printing. Come on now.
My point
so
was, it
impersonal.
makes more sense for Lewis, but if I'm going to receive 20 emails from people all around the world, you know how easy it is to send an email?
yeah.
That's really easy. I feel like if someone hand writes you a letter or me a letter, okay, maybe I owe them something as far as a response. But if you just send off an email that maybe you've cut and pasted to several people,
Right.
I'm under no
I
obligation.
used to feel the obligation to respond to every email. I no longer feel that obligation.
Good, yeah.
What if we get a happy medium and I get
Typewriter.
the monastery a typewriter? Yes, yes. There's something about getting a legit typewriter. I think I would love that also.
I would use a typewriter.
There we go. Okay.
I'll get you one.
Now
You
we're
want
on to something.
I'll 100% get you one if you want one.
Genuinely would be
Yeah.
awesome. I love the idea
Shayne
of
and
you
I
with
will
your
go
little
hubs.
spectacles and you're like,
You'll get
Clicking
the you'll
away.
get the first letter.
gotta
I've
do it.
written
We'll
both
go
of you.
halves.
I've written both of you
have?
letters.
yeah, yeah.
I want to tell you about Hallow, which is the #1 downloaded prayer app in the world. It's outstanding. Hallow.com/MattFrad. Sign up over there right now and you will get the first 3 months for free. That's like a lot of time. You can decide whether it's useful to you or not, whether it's helpful. If you don't like it, you can always quit. Hallow.com/MattFrad. I use it. My family uses it. It's fantastic. There are over 10,000 audio guided prayers, meditations, and music, including my lo-fi. Hallow has been downloaded over 15 million times in 150 different countries. It helps you pray, helps you meditate, helps you sleep better. It helps you build a daily routine and a habit of prayer. There's honestly so much excellent stuff on this app that it's difficult to get through it all. Just go check it out. Hallow.com/MattFrad. The link is in the description below. It even has an entire section for kids. So if you're a parent, you could play little Bible stories to them at night. It'll help them pray. Fantastic. Hallow.com/MattFrad. Can you tell us about your shirt?
My shirt
And where people can get it?
Yeah, so I wanted to I wanted to make shirts. Okay.
For those who persecute you.
Yeah. So this
Pray
is
for those who persecute.
pray for those who
Yeah.
persecute.
I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to know why the guy who's persecuting me has a cross on.
No. He's praying for his enemies.
I see.
Yeah. He's being persecuted and he's up to stuff.
I see.
Yeah. So I just wanted to. There's this company called Ritual Print, and there's a lovely man by the name of Tommy who's an Orthodox gentleman, and he sings in a band called Holy Name.
Okay.
Holy Name is in the St. Michael's War Music thing I
Nice.
have. So
What's a good visual? What's the print called?
a Ritual Print.
Ritual.
And they're great. And they print, everyone there is Christian, and they're a very like Christ forward thing. And it's all made in America, and it's really cool. And they're in Salt Lake, my hometown, the lead singer of one of my favorite bands of all time. So I'm like so honored and just like, it's just crazy. I almost could cry about it. It's so cool that this is where my life has taken me. So anyway, I wanted to make shirts because as a comedian, you're supposed to sell merchandise. It's a part of how you make a lot of your money. And I am bad at that. I never take merchandise because I just don't want to like lug stuff around. I also hate finishing a show and then being like, please buy this. Like, I hate that. I hate it so much. So
Can I tell you the way I would sell stuff when I would? It was a really
Please.
easy way. Now it's going to be difficult for you now unless the Lord calls you to marriage. But here's what I would do. I would say, so I've got books and things up the back, and all of the proceeds, I want you to know, go to help needy children. Mine. And that was always good.
that's a good joke. 10 of 10. Wow.
you. You can take
Look
that.
at this guy.
From a
Yeah,
comedian.
I will take that.
What'd you say?
From a comedian.
Is this Ritual Print? Is this different people's merchandise on one website, or is it all yours?
Yeah, so they it's a print shop.
Look at this.
And they do all kinds of other people's prints, but they
Looks
do some
great.
of mine.
I love this.
Oh, they're awesome. They have one that's the Jesus prayer.
do they?
It's an incredible. It's my favorite shirt. I wear it all the time.
Is he an Orthodox fella?
He is. Yeah. And
Wonderful.
so he's just one of the best people, and his band is so fun and cool. He's a really kind person. So anyway, I wanted to make shirts because I'm like, oh, I got to make them. And then there's this thing where comedians always like their merchandise has their name across it real big, which I'm wildly uncomfortable with. And then so I was like, I want to make merch that I would wear. And so then I'm like, I want it to, I'm like, oh, it'd be so cool if it's like has something to do with my faith, but then also is something that like a secular person who enjoys my comedy would just think is cool. Also, now I'm sneaking in a little Catholicism into the secular situation. But so I was like, oh, I'm gonna make this like heavy metal cool shirt, and this is what the first one I came up with. And I just love like the imagery. It's a nod to shirts from heavy metal bands in like the 2010s. So it's a very specific type of shirt. But pray for those who persecute you.
Have you sold many?
That you may be sons of your Father in heaven. I love that. I've sold a decent amount, but I would love to sell more. If anyone here wants to look really cool at the gym.
Josiah, would you mind putting the link in the bio?
Yeah, there we go.
Link in the description I'm in.
Link in bio. Yeah. So yeah, it's I like it. I'm making more.
Yeah. Do you design them? Or?
Yeah. Well, with I collaborate with the designer at Ritual, but like I'm making one. So they have one that's the Jesus prayer, and the prayer goes across the front, and then it's got like it's all busy and has all this cool Orthodox imagery, and then it has these two Orthodox monks in their super awesome hoods, and it just like. It's so cool. Have you ever heard of Death to the World?
Yeah.
The like magazine. That's kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, that's
and so
aesthetic.
I'm making a Hail Mary version with Mary and Gabriel, and then it's gonna have the whole Hail Mary on it and everything. So that'll be very cool. Yeah, so it'll be a heavy metal Hail Mary shirt with Gabriel and Mary on it.
I love that they're working alongside
so
Roman
cool.
Catholics like yourself.
I know.
Right?
It's awesome. I love it. So I know that there's so many people who are like kind of down on ecumenicalism, or is that the word? Is
Ecumenism.
Yeah, I don't know how to speak.
Ecumenism, yeah.
Remember earlier how you were like, you're the muscle guy, and then we figured out that I wasn't the smart guy. So,
and then you're like, oh yeah, you just quoted Camus.
So, yeah, I guess. But anyway, I forgot what I was saying.
It's cool
Napoleon
that
Bonaparte.
so that's cool that they're because that Death to the World aesthetic, that's beautiful. I don't know anyone in the Roman Catholic space that's creating content like that. Would you please do it for us?
Yeah.
I think we could.
I'm on it. We're working on it.
That would do really well.
Yeah, it's very cool. So yeah, I'm trying to make these. I've got more. I've got one that's like a Knight Hospitaller, like the outline of him, and he's got a bunch of arrows in him, and he's trying to stand up with using his sword, and it says, "Stand up, Son of God. There is more in you." I like that one.
It's funny because stand up and you're a stand up comedian.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
It was meant to do that. Is
Yes,
that right?
Yeah, that's
you're
clever.
getting it. You're getting
It's
it,
very
but it's
clever.
also very cool and tough and sort of like got it going. So, but yeah, and so I'm working on that, but it's fun.
Could we take questions?
Please.
And then you can answer as little as much as you want.
Sure.
Why do nuns have a reputation for being mean, crotchety, and slapping you with a ruler? Says Emmanuel's mum.
I think
Because some of them are mean, crotchety, and slap you with a ruler.
yeah, I think that was probably the experience of a lot of people in school with like sisters who were teachers in a time when it was like discipline is how you become holy or something. I don't know. Yeah.
I think that it's almost like that movie sort of trope.
Yeah.
Because I, as a secular person, remember thinking like nuns are severe, austere people. And then every nun I've ever met has been like the light of my life. Like they're incredible. I have like this weird fascination with nuns now where I just want to, I want to buy every nun on earth roses for Valentine's Day. We're working on it. But like, yeah, so I don't know. I think that's fake. And I also think that like in the 70s and 80s, I hear stories. My dad was like, yeah, my principal spanked me. My teacher hit me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, so that's just what teachers did, not what nuns did. So maybe there's an element of that too.
I think there's also, I think people link nuns with teaching often
Yeah.
or with nursing.
Yeah. And if you're a teacher, I'm not justifying any of the abuse that took place from nuns. I'm sure that's happened. I never experienced it. But if you're teaching a bunch of kids, like you kind of need to lay down the law too, right?
That's my thing. I've never heard of someone being like, a nun wrapped my knuckles with a ruler. And then you're kind of like, what were you doing? And then they're like, oh, I was like the worst kid. And you're like, yeah, she's got to get after you, man.
Well, Father, a priest here, says, hello, I am a priest and recently my spiritual director, a priest, advised me to find a Catholic, preferably a counselor, who is a woman, so that when it comes to ministry, I can get a feminine perspective. Of course, this would not be instead of direction, but in addition to it. I am quite busy, cliche, I know, and to add a regular meeting for something like this just isn't a priority right now. But I do find that I get fresh insight on stuff when I speak with women devoted to Christ, especially nuns. What do you think? Don't worry, he's not about to ask you to be his spiritual mother. Go.
Yes, I can be your spiritual mother. Yeah, I think... I think there does need to be some discernment there of how much of your time in your ministry is spent ministering to women. Like if you have female directees and things like that, then I realize that it will take time and energy to add something into your schedule. But if it's going to make you a better father to your flock, then I think that's something that, like a sacrifice that you might need to make, you know, kind of like we were talking about earlier of like, where is your energy going? So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds right. It sounds prudent. Like, I mean, I don't know. They are half of your congregation, I would assume, at your parish. So you want to reach them as best as humanly possible.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a parish priest.
If you're a parish priest. Yeah.
Do you?
Sometimes.
Like how much responsibility should be on your shoulders to like connect with everyone in your parish? That sounds exhausting.
I don't think you need
Maybe
to
not to connect.
Yeah, but like you
Understand.
need to be able to, understand and be
especially if they're coming to you,
compassionate
I
and-
suppose, right? And then you're in a place where you have to engage.
And that's why I say, like, if you're directing women, like if you're a spiritual director for women, like, yeah, you better understand women, or you might be like causing harm. If you're directing your female directees the same way you're directing your male directees, you're missing something.
Please tell me. Give us some more insight on that. What are some ways that you suspect women are sometimes directed as if they were fellas that is unhealthy?
Yeah.
Or not helpful?
I think it's just like, I guess I'll give the nuance that these are generalizations. And so I understand that there are exceptions to every generalization, right? But we often, I mean, even honestly, even like hormonal stuff, I will talk to my spiritual father about hormonal things that are happening because those affect the spiritual life. They absolutely do. And like, that's not the same thing that a man is going to be bringing to direction, you know? So there's things like that, but it's also just, there are the different lies that I think the devil particularly speaks to women versus men. I think women often believe they're too much, and I think men often believe they're not enough.
Yeah, that's actually pretty profound. Yeah.
Stop looking at me.
So I think that there's sensitivity needed in directing both men and women, but I think the sensitivity looks different. You know, like Father Boniface is not my spiritual director, but I meet with him regularly, and I would imagine he speaks very differently to me and interacts very differently with me than he does with his like male directees. I don't know. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Things like that. So I don't know.
Father Boniface, sorry.
No, I would also, if you're a person who has your relationships with women are very different because you're a priest and you have vows and stuff, like how much do you understand women, do you think?
That's a dangerous question. Well, I don't even know what that means.
Exactly.
We
And
actually
you're married to
we
one.
actually need to ask Cameron that question.
Yeah. And so imagine like you're married and it's hard.
Yeah.
Imagine no marriage and you're so busy and now you need to understand. So maybe that should be priority.
And honestly, not even just for the sake of, I'm going to go back on what I said a little bit, because it's not even just for the sake of the women that he's ministering to, but like for his own sake, it's good to have the feminine perspective. Because like men need women too. It's not good for a man to be alone, and y'all need our perspective just as we need
100%.
yours.
I know I need my wife's perspective. Whenever I have brought something to her that I'm trying to discern and think through, she has never led me astray. Whenever she's had, you're right, let's do this, or I don't know about that, let's go this way. Yeah, she's usually spot on.
So yeah,
I don't know if that's a Cameron thing or a woman more generally intuition thing or both.
But here's a thought of let's try Shayne's method of can we find a compromise and make everybody happy? Like maybe you don't have to actually add something into your schedule, and maybe it doesn't need to be a counselor, but is there a married couple at your parish that you can be spending more intentional time with them at their house for dinner and like letting the wife like speak into some of the, not sharing inappropriately with her or crossing boundaries or things like that, but is something like that a possibility? Yeah.
Gotta get that compromise.
This is a funny question. Well, doctor says, my fiance didn't grow up Catholic. She is now and thinks nuns are creepy. All right. What can I say to her to possibly change the way she views them? Nothing. Have her watch this video and she'll realize they're not, but
that's from those horror movies. Where they're I can't remember what they're called.
Nun?
Where there's like
nun.
an evil nun that shows up, but she's not even that scary looking. Honestly, she's kind of sick.
Honestly, I could take her.
Yeah. She's got like the death metal corpse paint on, and I'm like, that just looks like a cool nun on Halloween. How sick would that be if it was Halloween and your nun at your local parish or whatever showed up and she had corpse paint on and was handing out candy?
That would be creepy.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't think I'm creepy.
At all.
Okay.
Of course not.
I literally
So I could show videos of me. That's a weird thing to say.
Hey, how did your stand-up show go recently?
really well.
Sorry, is that what you say, stand-up show? Or
My recording.
Yeah, because it was, explain to people like me who aren't familiar with this. You have to work on content for a long period of time, and then you do a new set, and it was recorded.
So you spend a long time writing. You write an hour. You perform it. It takes you sometimes years to nail down and get like timed correctly and well done and all the laughs you want in there, and it's written right. And then you record it, and now you're back to square zero. Or square one, whatever, however they say it. Square 01. Again, I'm the muscle guy, apparently. I'm not even that good at it. I got to get bigger. So, it's just, you do that. And so I wrote an hour. I've been touring on it for like a year and a half, and it was time to record. And so I nailed it down, and I went and recorded it at Dry Bar in Provo, Utah for VidAngel, the people who own the company or whatever, and it was great. It went really well. I messed up like once or twice. No one noticed, but you film 2 shows, so if you mess up on
that's
one,
gotta be nice.
You get the other one, and then you kind of blend them together to make the best version
Just
of your
mentally
set.
knowing that that's the case must be wonderful.
It's incredible.
Although they're like, why does everyone in the front row look different?
Yeah,
in this one shot.
It is funny because they cut to different laughter, and you can tell that the crowds are different, but like no one really says anything.
Know.
I noticed, but
no one would know.
It went well. I was really happy with it. It's a little different than anything I've done. So I went as my specials as I've grown as a comedian, I've just like stepped into what I want to do, which is tell long stories that are like far away from things other comics are doing. Different experiences, not just like the stuff people tread, the typical like sex and relationships, or like this is what my kids are up to. I think there's a lot of good stuff, and I'll probably eventually do some, but I'm trying to do weirder stuff that people haven't heard. So this recent special, I talk about like my childhood in the very small town, like bringing a gun to elementary school for show and tell.
What?
Yeah.
You actually did that?
Yeah. So I have a whole bit about that, and I get taken to the principal's office, and the principal has my back because it's the smallest town ever. We had this like teacher from California that's like, when like a lady is so progressive that she becomes racist?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. She's like one of those, like the sweetest lady that means well, but just like so bad at being like she's from California. She moved to the boonies to like help poor trailer people. She's like a white lady with dreadlocks and her weird, really colorful dresses with patches sewn into them. I remember her. She's really sweet. But I just like pulled a gun out for show and tell, sort of pointing it at people, and she was just like not having it. She took it to the principal's office. And then, so I do jokes about that. And then I get I do that, and then I get wilder. I tell like one of the craziest stories I've ever told on stage for recording, which is the story of my brother setting someone on fire in a fight.
That's pretty crazy.
And it sounds like mortifying, but I do make it funny, and the people are fine. Ish, whatever, they're alive.
Do you sometimes fear that people think you're making these up?
So
because
yes,
they're so outlandish.
100%. So I have I tell a ghost story. That's the majority of my set is a ghost story. The set starts in my childhood, leads up to my brother doing that very crazy thing in that fight, and then I say, and he's not even the craziest person in my family, here's about my mother. And I tell a story about my mother knocking a dog unconscious. And then we
go, dogs again.
Yeah. I know. Sorry. This is a crazy good episode of You're a Cat Person. You're just like, yes, these people get it. I have a dog, everybody. I love dogs, okay?
So your mom knocked a dog unconscious. I want to make you tell us in case they should watch this show.
Oh, yeah. The dog, trust me, when you see if you go watch the special and you'll be like, oh, she was right. But I promise you. And then a lot of the joke is me saying that and then addressing how awkward the crowd becomes. That's a big part of the joke because the crowd is so like, ooh. And then I make them realize that like you're acting on emotion, you're not thinking about it. Because there are lots of reasons to stop a dog.
I could think at least 200.
Yeah. And so, and then we go into, my mother's into hunting ghosts. That's her main hobby. She's obsessed with the
wild.
Yeah. And she's from a total scientific perspective. There's no like
you have
weird
to get her on
spirituality. Yeah, none of that. She's 100% just evidence-based, interested in whatever ghosts may be. And so it's pretty fun. And so she invites me and my brother to go ghost hunting with her once. And we had like a crazy experience and it was really silly and goofy. But I tell that ghost story and I have a recording of a ghost whistling at us, but I swear in the recording because I'm scared. So I couldn't play it, but I usually play it when I do the stand-up. I tell the story and then in the middle of the story I go, do you guys want to hear a real recording? And everyone is obviously down and I play the real recording for them. And so I was hoping,
but you can't because this is dry bar.
I couldn't do it on dry bar. So I was like, people aren't gonna believe this, but I have a recording, but I swear in it. And so I was
when
like,
was
I can't
this
play
recorded?
it.
How
This
old
was
were you?
like 3 years ago.
Do you explain that in the skit?
Could you please explain to us? Sorry.
Yeah, no, please. Well,
Please explain to us. You don't have to make it funny. But can you tell us how on earth this happened 3 years ago and what happened?
Yeah. So me and my brothers give my mom a lot of grief about ghost hunting, which is silly because as a teenager, we've all been to a haunted house to ghost hunt with a girl or whatever. And it's your whole friend group is scared and it's actually a fun adventure. But that's just what my mom's up to. But she's got like $5,000 worth of gear and night vision goggles and stuff. She rocks, dude. And so she invites us to go ghost hunting. And of course, she's so excited to share her hobby with us. And we show up and we begin to ghost hunt. She's showing us how it works. And she has these ghost hunting friends.
Okay, hang on. Sorry. Just slow down. Just the three of you? And are you like at a building on your own? Is it
Three
dark?
of us at a really like 100-plus-year-old haunted bank in Salt Lake City, Utah. And it's got these tunnels underground that the Mormons had dug so that they could like hide from the government. It's so cool.
That is cool. How did she get access to the building?
So what she does is she finds buildings that are rumored to be haunted or have a lot of people who talk about them or whatever. She finds the owner and she simply is like, I'm a paranormal investigator. Can I go here and I'll show you any evidence I grab? Here's evidence I've gotten from other places. She's got legit evidence of ghosts, and those people get fired up and they're like, yeah, is my building haunted? Because it's like cool. And so she does this. By the way, I don't know if this is heresy or not. Just to be clear, my mom is a Protestant. Later. She doesn't care.
Is it nighttime? Please tell me.
Yes, of course it's nighttime. It's got to be scary, my man.
How could you do this during the day?
Exactly. Well, presumably the ghost is still there in the day hanging out.
Well, this is true. My mom says she could hunt ghosts during the day, but it's just more fun at night. Why not make it more fun for yourself?
Okay. So your mum, who has night vision goggles, and your brother show up at an abandoned bank that she's allowed to enter.
Exactly.
And
with
then what?
With two of her friends.
And you cannot tell this slow enough. I want every detail.
Okay. So we show up. I'm gonna try not to like do too many like stand-up jokes, but if I joke, it'll be. So we show up. My mother's there with her friends. They're these ghost hunting ladies. They rock. Listen. This is a joke in the special, but all my mom's ghost hunting friends are in their 60s, and they look exactly like what you think they do. You know what I mean? Like, you know what they are up to. And so we go, and we show up, and my mom kind of gives us a rundown. We just got to stick with her and hang out. And so then we begin to ghost hunt, and then of course we're doing like, we've got cameras. My mom has like this crazy like laser machine that blows up. It makes the whole room full of lasers. Have you ever seen that movie? Is it Entrapment? What's the movie where Catherine Zeta-Jones is like going through the lasers?
I know what you mean.
It's wildly inappropriate now that I think about it. She's in the most skin tight suit, but that's what it looks like. It's like lasers everywhere, so that if you see like a ghost, apparently it's like the lasers are like outlining it. We didn't see any, and then she has like these cameras. She has like an Xbox Kinect camera, and they like wear it or whatever. And then like, because the Xbox Kinect senses the body, and sometimes like a ghost will be on the Xbox Kinect, and you'll like see like a body moving, but there's nothing in front of you. But the Xbox, it's capturing. It's really fun. It's interesting. I don't know if it's real, but. So
this is wonderful,
isn't it? So it's really fun and kind of scary.
Very different people,
right?
Like the way you grew up, your first job, what your mum does.
Yeah.
We couldn't be more different. Then what happens?
So it's pitch black. Also, we're wearing headlamps and have lights, and like it's really scary. And so we're doing all this stuff and hunting, and we're like, we've got the tape recorders and stuff. And of course, me and my brother like can't help ourselves. We're like tossing rocks or knocking, and then everyone's like, what was that? And we're like, a lot of ghosts, you know. Like, yeah, I know what it's like, you know, trying to act like we're cool. And so it's like this huge building, and you ghost hunt like room by room, and my mom's got her tape recorder, and then they like take time to like go over the evidence every so many hours or whatever. But we ghost hunted.
How many hours are you there?
My mom has ghost hunted for 9+, I think. Like full on, like I'm all night in this building.
When she took you and your brother, how long were you there?
We were only there for like 5 hours.
Was that it?
Okay.
Yeah. It's a part-time shift.
And you're just walking around a dark.
Walking around, and then sometimes sitting in a room. So my mom will be like, there's a lot of activity in this room, or historically we've captured EVPs, so we're going to spend time here. And they have like different devices. Like my mom has this little boom box called the Spirit Box, and apparently ghosts talk through radio signals. I don't know how real that is, but that one's weird. And so we're doing all this stuff, and it, honestly, mostly just, it reminds me of your video game thing, where I'm like, I don't care if this is real or what's going on. It's scary and it's fun, and I'm with my mom. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just having a good time. But a ghost did whistle at us. So we were up in this area, so we ghost hunt.
Great sentence.
Right. I got catcalled by a ghost.
We're going to call it a ghosted whistle.
So the first 2 floors of the bank and the basement are like what you would think. It's just like a creepy haunted building with a lot of rooms. The 3rd story is like all the walls are knocked down. There's only the large load-bearing pillars, and then it's full of theater rents that room, and it's full of costumes. So it's like a maze of these giant racks of clothes. And they're not organized well.
Clown costumes?
Right.
No.
Right. Mascots, like creepy
The cow
heads.
from Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, like, yes. Yeah, moo. And so that's what a cow ghost would sound like. Someone put that on a popsicle stick. Stat. So it is creepy up there. It's so scary. And so we're in this area, and me and my brother thought we saw something. We wanted to leave. We're like genuinely scared. So we all sit down, and my mom puts the Spirit Box down, and we're kind of like crisscross applesauce on the ground. And my mom's trying to talk to a ghost, or not talk to a ghost, but get a ghost to talk to us. Because it's not like you're trying to discern the future. You're not like doing witchcraft or anything weird like that. You're simply trying to capture evidence. Who are you? Why are you able to talk to me? And what do you want to say? That's it. You're not trying to do more than that. My mom is very like, if they are real and there's something going on, then we're just going to give them an opportunity to talk to us. She's very sweet about it, actually. And so we're trying to talk to it and nothing's happening. And I'm kind of like, yeah, of course nothing's happening. And then from behind me, out loud, not even in the box, something whistles at us like, and we all, in the recording I play, everyone is like, what was that? That was not from the box. And it scared us all so bad. And after that, we went downstairs and we had this whole thing. And this is like a crazy part of the story. But we go downstairs finally, and we're kind of done with the ghost hunt. And I texted my girlfriend at the time to be like, ghosts are real, by the way, you know? And then she was like, we need to have a talk later. And then we're immediately going to break up. And so I know, right? And so then I am... At this time of my life, like 3.5 years ago, I was very much not good with relationships. So as soon as I got the inkling she wanted to break up, I was like, I'm going to call her and ask her. And if she says yes, I'm going to hang up and never talk to her for the rest of my life, which is a very immature, kind of rude thing to do. But I was like, I'm not her boyfriend anymore. I don't owe her anything. That was my thought process. So I'm trying to call her, and I realized I didn't want to do it outside because it's winter in Utah and I'll die out there. And then I didn't want to do it inside because I didn't want my mom's goofy friends to be like, and they're so like wearing the big giant Paddington Bear hat, you know, like they're so sad. And I'm like, if I break up in front of them, that would be the saddest thing I could do. She's a 65-year-old woman hunting spirits, and I'm like, ooh. And so I went alone into the haunted building and closed the door behind me, and then something growled into the top of my head while I was trying to use my phone.
What does that mean?
Like growled like scary, real scary. And it was the most scared I've ever been. And it was a moment that like where I was like, religion is probably real because this is scary. Like I had a supernatural experience. But yeah, and it just scared me so bad. And then I tried to open the door and it wouldn't open. And so I got so scared that instead of trying to solve the problem or taking my time or figuring something out, I started punching and headbutting. And I pulled, like, I didn't kick the door down or pull it off. I literally went through, like, the room gave birth to me. You know what I mean? I went through the door. And so that was that night. It was very embarrassing.
So it was a square window which you busted and then
No,
went through?
a door. Like a door.
Oh, you busted a hole in a door.
Yeah. You know how some doors are just kind of like not very well made?
Yeah.
Like I literally like punched and headbutted. I was headbutting the door and ripped it open and then pushed my leg through and like crunched my way through the door. So the door is still closed and locked. I just went through it like the Kool-Aid Man. Like the weirdest, scaredest version of the Kool-Aid Man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what did you say to your,
Oh no!
what did you say to your mom? and
So
your
my mom
friends?
immediately was like,
Something's probably up.
yeah, I was
You're
like,
probably like, I'm gonna have to pay for that door.
well, I did have to pay for the door. So before the ghost hunt started, my mom had warned me that there's a specific entity that roams this thing and it scares people. She called it the tall man. And so the tall man scared me. And then my mom was like, never let me live it down. So that's the whole thing. So she made fun of me immediately.
He growled into your head.
He growled into the top, like he was standing behind me and growled into the top of my head.
Tall.
Because he's tall. You know? And then...
Did she think we should go investigate that room?
No.
Did that change?
There was a rule that you're not supposed to go into his room specifically. Because my mom is very interested in respecting spirits.
I don't know. Screw that guy. He growled into my son's head.
That's what I said. I was like, do you even love me? Why would you invite, you know? And so, but yeah, I accidentally, by providence or, you know, bad luck, I chose his room to go into.
to break up with my girlfriend.
To break up with my girlfriend.
And did you break up with her?
I sure did. Well, she broke up with me.
Were you on the phone when you heard the
No,
growl?
I was trying to call her and my phone wasn't working.
Wait, so you still So later she broke up
Later
with you.
we broke. So I
I'm
was
like,
like
you didn't
the
make that call after the growl.
Yeah, I was later that night.
Okay.
Later that night, but I was so scared, and then I had to do that. It honestly made the breakup like I could care less about this. I just found out ghosts are real. Like our relationship is meaningless. The afterlife is happening. We got to figure this out. You know what I mean?
You being disappointed with me is the second most scariest thing that's happened today.
Right. I was like, I got to figure out what ghosts are, and then luckily the magisterium knows, so that's great.
Wow, that is the most wild story I've ever
Isn't
heard.
it? I'll show you the recording later.
I would love to. Thomas
Yeah.
Aquinas talks about how the dead can appear to us, and he says how the damned can appear to us, those in purgatory can appear to us to beseech our prayers, the blessed can appear to us, that's what we call visions of the saints.
Right.
And so, depending on how you define ghost, the Catholic answer is obviously they're real.
Yeah. I also, one of my big epiphanies as I very, very first started discerning Christianity in general was one of my friends. I had that experience. I told him about it. He's a wild skeptic. Like, no way he would believe he's so hardcore, like almost to the point where you're like, something's going on. Why are you this much of a skeptic? And he was like, well, I want the experience. I seek it out and never happens. Like I'll play with a Ouija board. I'll do all these negative,
that's a terrible
horrible
idea.
things. I know. And so, but nothing ever happens to him. And he's like, so it's not real. And I go, well, you don't believe anything. Why would they come near you? You're already giving them what they want. And then I was like, wait a minute. That makes a lot of sense. Why would someone who doesn't believe and is living in sin and seeking out these kinds of things, by them appearing to you, they would give you the ammunition to then believe in God, which is kind of what happened to me. So by rights, they're sneaky like that.
So was this experience, would you say, at least part of what eventually led you to Catholicism?
Yes, 100%. It was in retrospect, an incredibly positive experience for me, which is why I wanted to do the joke, because I wanted to just talk about that experience and like bring to light the supernatural, because it happened. It's so interesting. And it was,
Did you try to explain it away somehow through,
no.
given the context and what you already heard, it would seem likely that you would interpret it that way. But I think if it were me, I'd be like, okay, did I think I heard that?
That was
so
the
real.
whistle. I
Yeah.
was explaining the whistle away to myself, and honestly, already dismissing it by the time I got into that room. And then whatever spirit that was like, oh, listen, I got you. You're going to believe. And so that happened to me, but it ended up being a positive. But then you read like Exorcist, or like it's actually a major blessing to encounter a demon, because by encountering him, your faith in God increases like tenfold. And then also logically, oh, I've seen this thing, so the antithesis must exist. So it like just strengthens your belief in God, which is an interesting perspective, to be like, what a blessing to have something so negative happen to you. But again, God works through negativity and evil to bring goodness.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And when will your special be out?
My special will be out.
We'll post about
to
it when
be
it comes
determined.
out. Whenever it comes out.
I have no idea, but I think pretty soon.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's a weird one, and I'm just
Can't
like,
wait.
oh, I hope people.
And I love what you said about the narrative of your, like, using your story.
Yeah.
I love that. It's not just one joke after the other, that it's connected
Yeah,
chronologically.
this is inside baseball, and I'm not ruining my own special, I suppose, by saying this, but the idea is that the special begins, and I'm in the small town, and I'm this weird little kid, and I bring a gun to school, and I'm very wild, and you go, oh, that's crazy. And then I bring my brother into it, and he's wild, and you go, he's even crazier. And then my mom is here, and she's the craziest one. And then me and my brothers are like sort of almost disparaging my mother, like, and her hobby and what she's into. But it turns out, despite her being the craziest one, she's the most right. And so at the end, my mom is the hero, and everything she said was true, and we were wrong to think that she was being silly. And so there's like a hidden lesson where, like, just because your mom's the craziest person doesn't mean that she doesn't know and you shouldn't respect her and she's not right. And so there's like this through thread of like, oh, the family's crazy and everything's wrong, but actually she's right.
Wow. And then you get to reinterpret all of the so-called less crazy events
Yes.
through that light.
Exactly. So I think that's fun.
Have you ever experienced a ghost when you were a child, or thought you did, or?
No.
Okay. That's the correct answer for a nun to give on a popular podcast.
Yeah.
I also love
It's
as
also
soon
the
as he
true
brought up
answer.
Ouija boards, you were like, those aren't good.
Yeah,
just need
just
to
to
say
be
that
clear.
very clear as
No.
not on the podcast.
Genuinely horrific. The occult is awful. No one go near it.
Yeah.
It's silly.
That was wild. I cannot wait to hear your special.
Thank you. Yeah,
I'm really excited. I wanted to be
very
there
talented.
so badly.
I
I
know.
wanted to be there.
I wish. One day I want to do another one. I was talking to.
What about a special just nuns can come?
I performed for the Sisters of Life, and let me tell you, it's the most nervous I've ever been.
Oh, I would be too, because the Sisters of Life are beautiful women, but they're a lot more straight-laced than your sisters, wouldn't you say?
What does that mean?
Interpret it however you want and then tell me I'm wrong.
I plead the fifth.
Because there's different religious orders, you know, like you look at the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. They're kind of like, they're rough and tumbled and beautiful.
Yeah.
But then there are other religious orders in the male who would be a lot more kind of, like the Dominicans, right?
The stormtroopers.
Yeah.
They remind me of the
that's
stormtroopers
okay.
from Star Wars. They're in all white. They're all very straight and sort of like,
Exactly.
hello, I'm a Dominican.
Yeah.
I know things.
Yeah.
I like that.
So then how did they receive it? The Sisters of Life.
You know what? I couldn't tell if they were laughing.
So not great.
And then I told like a crazy story. I told an old story of mine that I actually want to re-record. I was talking to Josiah. I actually want to do a small special that's only like 20, 25 minutes long. That's like a house show or like in a really small space that I record myself. We should collaborate on that
Yes,
maybe.
we should.
But yeah, so I don't know if they liked it, but afterwards they spoke to me about my conversion story and my witness, and they all seemed very like excited to talk to me about that. And so that was nice. And they also took a photo with me, were very sweet, but they're also nuns. So maybe they were just being nice and they're like, this guy. But it was like it was a very large pro-life event with like 900 people there. It was really cool.
Recently?
There was a bishop too.
Recently?
Yeah, recently in Arizona. Like 2 months ago.
It's wild because you just became Catholic recently and you've had already so many
So
Catholics.
many-
That's so lovely.
I know. It's so funny because I felt like everyone was waiting for a little bit after my baptism and be
Yeah,
like,
we'll
okay,
see
he's
what
being
happens.
serious. He's being serious.
We'll see if it takes.
Yeah. And so I've been like, yeah, it's been great. I feel so good to be able to use my comedy for something that feels real, you know, intangible, some tangible good, you know, whereas like usually you're just doing jokes for like you feel like I'm a chicken finger salesman at the end of the day. I go to comedy clubs and they make their money from selling cocktails and chicken fingers. And that's kind of why I'm there. So that they can make money, you know, and of course I want to believe like I'm making people happy and giving them like some sort of refuge from the horror of life, and like laughter is so important. When we laugh, I feel like we're close to God, but like I am a chicken finger salesman. So it feels good to be like, oh, I'm here like bringing joy to these people and we're like raising money for a real thing, or like Catholics are seeing me be like a person who's doing things that you don't expect Catholics to do, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that's like maybe edifying isn't the word I want. What's the word I want? I don't know. But yeah, I feel like I'm doing something more tangible that's good now.
Yeah.
So
Do you have, when you go give a comedy special, let's say at this thing you did in Utah, do you have people who recognize that you're Catholic from other things you've done and want to talk about that now?
Yes. Yeah. So my fan base is a lot of my old fans have stayed and they're so wonderful and great, and I appreciate them immensely. And then now I have this new group of fans who are all Catholics or like even Protestants and Orthodox, just Christians in general. And they come to the show and they're always so cool. Like I went from having shows and not doing meet and greets because I was getting sexually harassed by like women.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's the worst.
I was just making a joke. I was trying to pretend that I was sexually harassing you. But no, let's go with your interpretation.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's never who you want.
It's never who you want.
It's always just,
Josiah said, there's a nun right there.
it's always
Sorry.
some guy's drunk aunt and she's like, I love you. Let me lift lift your shirt up. And you're like, never in my life. And you're trying to karate her away, but she's so strong. And like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just awkward. And so I stopped doing meet and greets for a while because I was just so awkward about it. And then, I converted, and this new tour, I started being like, well, these crowds they seem like cool. Like, let's do a meet and greet and see what this is all about. Yeah. And they've been incredible. I'm talking about, like, I've received relics, gifts. I've had priests come and give me blessings and like give me spiritual guidance, and like I've made so many friends, and people bring me like this guy from this company called Motherboards. He brought me all these skateboards that have like saints on them and like awesome stuff. You're
gonna have to give her one.
I know. I have a Joan of Arc skateboard that rocks, and so they're so cool, and like so they're icons on skateboards, like straight up. It's the best. And so many people have done so many beautiful and cool things, or given me letters talking about how my witness has like really helped them. And then I've also had a lot, hundreds of people come to shows and be like, I came back to the church after listening to you, or my parents showed me you, and now I'm like discerning Christianity again. Like it's like so good. So comedy has like, it's so funny. I was so burnt out. And then after my conversion now, I'm not doing anything different. I'm still doing comedy. I'm not even doing comedy about my faith, but somehow by just like putting God first in my life and trying to like always put that out there, it has made my work more rewarding, which is so interesting because really I haven't changed anything. That set I was doing before my conversion. And now that set has like got new meaning. It's just interesting that God is like, oh, I'll just take this and now it's better and we're doing something good with it. Thank you, Shayne, for trying, That feels so good. So it's been sick. Wow. The amount of people who have talked to me about converting or reverting because of our interview, and then just like basically being like, you're a weird guy, I'm a weird person, I didn't know I could do this I didn't know you were allowed to be weird and Catholic. There's a lot of that. And I'm like, yeah, you're allowed to be weird and Catholic? For sure you are. Most of us are weird if you go and start paying attention, So wow. It's been really good.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So many people, like so many. I have like, I screenshot like every message I get because I can't reply to all of them. But like I think right now in a folder, like 400 something screenshots of people being like, I am in RCIA or I've reverted because of like your comedy or your interviews or just whatever. It's been great.
I'd print those out. Put them somewhere and that's thanks to God.
Yeah, that's kind of my plan. So it's been good.
I want to tell you about a course that I have created for men to overcome pornography. It is called strive21.com/Matt. You go there right now, or if you text strive to 66866, we'll send you the link. It's 100% free. And it's a course I've created to help men, to give them the tools to overcome pornography. Usually men know that porn is wrong. They don't need me or you to convince them that it's wrong. What they need is a battle plan to get out. And so I've distilled all that I've learned over the last 15 or so years as I've been talking and writing on this topic into this one course. Think of it as if you and I could have a coffee over the next 21 days and I would kind of guide you along this journey. That's basically what this is. It's incredibly well produced. We had a whole camera crew come and film this. And I think it'll be a real help to you. And it's also not an isolated course that you go through on your own, because literally tens of thousands of men have now gone through this course. And as you go through the different videos, there's comments from men all around the world encouraging each other, offering to be each other's accountability partners and things like that. Strive21, that's strive21.com/Matt, or as I say, text strive to 66866 to get started today. You won't regret it. Jason Everett, a good friend of mine, travels around the country speaking on chastity, and he's been doing it for years, and he's very effective, incredibly brilliant, talented, hilarious. And he's got like a big shoebox full of things that students have given him after they have heard him speak. So like the Playboy bunny necklace, or the condoms in the pocket, or the all sorts of just debaucherous stuff.
War trophies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really is.
Someone's gonna find that shoebox after he dies and be like, "This guy's the biggest hypocrite."
It's so funny.
Well, he said once he said two funny things. Once he was walking through the airport and he had a condom in his back pocket that a student gave him, but the cellophane made the thing go off.
Oh no!
You know, what are you going to say to that?
Oh my
Mortified.
gosh.
No! Don't worry. A man gave it to me. Yeah. It's so tough.
Well, he
That's
also
so
has
funny.
this Barbie doll that he uses in his skits sometimes. Not his skits, but in his presentations. And so they had to check his bag and they pull it out. And he's like, what am I going to say? Like, that's for work? What am I going to...
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, war trophies. That's a lot better than...
What particular stresses do you think are upon the people of God today that we don't readily see but need to acknowledge? Because I think that too often we say things like, look, the way we're living today, like it's so comfortable compared to the way things were years ago. Like we've got it. And there's a sense in which that's obviously true. But there's a sense in which I think it's not, and I think it underplays the amount of stress Christians are under today. So what do you think those particular stresses and anxieties are that we're dealing with, and how is God giving us provision in this time for this moment?
I mean, the stress I see the most people message me about and that I feel often, because I'm like attacked online quite a bit, is modern culture has flipped everything so that as a Christian, you are perceived as evil or bad or controlling. And when you're, not Christian and you're in your pride and self-care and you're self-centered and your life is around pleasure and you don't care about all these things, that's good. And so many people perceive you as bad without knowing you. I think that affects people. So many people message me and they're like, I want to be Christian, but I feel like, am I being gullible? Am I being am I a sheep? Am I doing the wrong thing by doing this? I'm afraid of people thinking that I'm bad or that I hate gay people or that I don't support women. The narrative is just so flipped that like you kind of have to exist with strangers thinking you're a bad person. And that's difficult, especially when your whole life is centered around trying to do the most good and love the highest good. And now you're in the situation where it's almost like you have to suffer quietly or sort of just, and it goes back to us talking about how you're perceived, and it's like, especially as a Christian, I so badly want people to perceive me as a Christian, as a good person who's doing their best. And very often I'm not perceived that way. And so then you suffer and you put in all this work and you're loving, but like no one sees the loving conversation I have with my gay friend who's scared to walk in their neighborhood recently. And like, they know I don't want them to live that lifestyle, but they're also a person I love and care. But no one cares about that. They only care about that my opinions about marriage. And that obstacle is huge. And to be a regular person and like face that is like, horrible. Just so difficult for people. I think that's a huge challenge today. But I don't know. I'm still dealing with it. I don't even know what to do half the time.
Yeah, there are two things that come to mind for me. The first is actually related to what you just closed with, Shayne, about, they don't see this relationship that you have. That's maybe not the way to put it. This friendship that you have with this gay friend and like wanting them to feel safe and loving them. Like they only see your views on marriage. And I think one of the stresses that we have is there's this false sense of knowing people because we have some amount of access to them online. And, like when you were saying, Matt, earlier about how easy it is to just send an email or whatever, it's like people think that because they've read someone's blog or they've listened to their podcast or they've like, well, they just know them. And then, but this is the case too with like emails or texts or friends on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, like this feeling like almost this, like we deserve access to other people at all times. And I think that adds this stress of also, I need to be accessible to everyone at all times.
Hypervigilance is what it leads to, right? You're always in a position of response or thinking you should be responding.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just feeds into this problem that we have in general, which is a stress of just everybody is doing too much. Yeah. Everybody's doing too much. Like we, you know, when we started having electricity, it's like, well, now we can work longer hours. Now we can do more things. Now we can, and there's just this constant like, do more. And well, I have all these emails to respond to, or all of these texts to respond to, or all of this work that I'm not getting done. And you know, there's this like mindset of, well, if I just had more time, but the truth is if you just had more time, you would just fill it with more stuff. You wouldn't actually, so I think there's this stress of we just do too much because it's hard for us to say no, or because we want to do all of the good things. Or, you know, I was thinking about this earlier when you were saying we only have the energy for so many friends. And before all of the access that we had to people, well, that was fine because these are the only people that you see, or these are the only people that you write to or whatever. But now it's like, yeah. And there are the goods obviously that come with that access, but then there's also the stress that comes with it of I need to be accessible to people all the time. But the other thing, and I think this is being talked about in a lot of Catholics and Christians in general are talking about this, but I think it's one of the biggest misconceptions that we have, and I think deserves to be talked about even more, is one of the episodes that I did recently for Pints a couple of weeks ago. And I was thinking of this when you were talking, Matt, about earlier when we were talking about Thérèse, and just like the point is not to just like healing does not mean just growth in holiness. I think healing does mean growth in holiness, but I don't think growth in holiness means what most people think it means. It doesn't just mean being better at doing good. It doesn't mean being better in general or losing our flaws. It means an increased communion with the Lord. So anyways, something that we get so backwards, and the episode that I did was, the point is not to not sin. And that's the mentality we have as Catholics often, as Christians often, is like, well, I just need to not sin. And we get this backwards mindset of like, I want to be holy. I want to be a saint so that I don't sin. And like, that's the total reverse of what our mindset needs to be. I want to not sin, sure, but because I'm striving for holiness. The point is communion with God. The point is not sinning. And I was thinking of this too when you were talking, Shayne, about Dismas, the thief. He's the one that the Lord says, this day you'll be with me in my kingdom. And he's being crucified as a thief.
Yeah. Like
his whole life, he was still doing this. And only in that last moment was there this conversion, and like, he's in the kingdom. And so why are we so stuck on like, I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does. Keep going though. You're hitting it.
Yeah. Just like, we get so stuck on ourselves and this self-reliance of like, well, I just want to be like, I think usually the reason we don't want to sin is just because we don't want to have to see ourselves in our sin and confront anything that's broken in ourselves, it's not because we're actually like worried about our relationship with God.
100%.
And that's just a problem. Yeah, it's the wrong focus.
I think one of the things that we are struggling with today is it's kind of what you said, a constant conflicting barrage of information. And that can be from the mundane, like what exercise should I do to help my back, or what food is best, or what vitamins could I take to sleep better. There's conflicting information on all of those. You'll get completely opposite accounts from people who all look credentialed, all seem equally enthusiastic, all have equally large YouTube channels. And you get to a point where you're like, I can't know anything because everything I thought I did keeps getting overturned. So it's on the mundane things, it's on the political level, it can even be on the religious level, as people are just desperately trying to find, like, what church does the Lord want me in, you know? I have many Protestant friends who say, look, if it's the Catholic Church, I'll do it. If it's the Orthodox Church, I'll do it. And I'm not trying to be stubborn. I'm not trying not to know. I just can't tell. It's like this analysis paralysis. And I think this is a real poverty that we're experiencing that should not be underestimated. Like, I think all three of us here, undergo a particular warfare with the world that Padre Pio knew nothing of. And I know that's a strong statement, and 1,000% will double down on it. I mean, he knew a warfare that I don't know, because he actually wrestled with the devil. Haven't done that yet. You almost did, but yeah, to have like every kind of debauchery and deviancy in your pocket, like he didn't know that actually.
Yeah,
you know. So like the person watching this who's struggling to be free of porn and is making like strides in that direction, just realize that like you get to choose Jesus in a way that Padre Pio didn't, because when you choose Christ over your phone, that wasn't an opportunity that Padre Pio had. All right, so that's just like maybe an example that kind of shocks us, but I really think we're living in the end times, and that the good Jesus is going to make provision for his church, and that provision is going to be different and in some respects greater than what previous Christians have received, because they weren't undergoing the same sort of stresses. That's a very kind of secular term, anxieties that we are.
Yeah. I often think about how much.
Do you think that's too much? Do you think that's...
I mean, a thought I have constantly is it would be so much easier to be martyred than to like struggle with lust, you know, or whatever. Like, just martyr me. Like, come on, it'd be so much easier. And so you think about Christians like struggling with like the Huns, or, you know, Spain and the Reconquista, or like all these like horrible things you hear about, or like Christian persecution. And there's a part of you that's almost like, that almost seems easier in terms of just like, what do I do about this? Oh, I'm being persecuted. Whatever it takes, find a way to do mass, you know, find a way to love the Lord, even if it's in secret. I saw a video of like these North Korean people having mass secretly in a basement, and they're like all whispering, and it's like so beautiful and like moving. And I'm like, it seems like I'm being lame to be like, and that looks easier. It doesn't look literally easier, but in terms of what I need to do, that looks easier, because you know exactly what you need to do. Resist, love the Lord. Yeah. I mean, that is kind of actually the same answer when if you're struggling with porn or whatever, you know, but like, it does seem like...
I know what you mean.
I'm in this modern life. It seems mundane, but it's so evil. And so you're like, it's just like so casual. When evil is less casual, it's so much easier to fight.
I've had a similar thought, and I wonder what you think about it. I've shared it before on the podcast. If the good Lord Jesus appeared to me and said, all right, Matt, here's what you have to do to be saved. I need you to listen to the Bible in a Year podcast every year. So you're not allowed to miss a day, every single day. All right. Also, I need you to pray the rosary every day. I need you to mass every day. I will crush that.
Yeah.
But if the good Jesus said, don't cause any unnecessary grief to your wife and children, I'd be like, oh, I'm screwed. I actually cannot do that. And what am I meaning by that? I guess it's like I want a list of things to do.
Yeah.
But I just see all that. And then maybe I worry about sins that I really shouldn't be as worried about. And then there are things I don't even consider that I should be way more worried about. Like, I really think that's true. Like, there's this beautiful prayer of St. Ephrem that I pray every night. There's a line in it: if a beggar has come to me and I despised or neglected him, if I've made fun of my brother's sin when my own faults are countless, if I've angered anyone, like, all these things, it's like it never occurred to us because we get so hyper fixated on certain sins.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly tough. When you see that in yourself too, it's like world-endingly difficult.
But I really think if things are worse than they've been in some respects, then it must be the case that grace is abounding all the more now, and that Christ is communing with us and blessing us and leading us and providing and protecting for us in a really peculiar way.
Yeah.
I think that's actually, I'm glad you said that. That's something I was going to comment on, because I appreciated what you said in the follow-up of, but Padre Pio also experienced a different struggle that you haven't, a different warfare that you haven't. Because in only saying we're experiencing a warfare that Padre Pio didn't have to, I think there's an unfairness in that until, again, you added and he had warfare that we didn't. Because I think the danger in even saying, I don't know, I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but even saying like, well, it seems like it would be easier to be martyred than to do this other thing. Like there's just such a danger, I think, in saying that any time or any way or any place would be easier or harder than what we're in right now, because God provides the grace. And so like he provides the grace for the martyrdom, and he provides the grace for overcoming the struggles that we're overcoming now. And it's just different. It's not easier or harder because he forms us to carry the crosses that we are supposed to carry, which are different crosses than other people are supposed to carry. So I think this is it's the problem that comes with comparison in general, comparison to other people, comparison to other times, is we're not usually imagining being that person in their shoes. We're imagining being ourselves in that person's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's
Very
just
good.
a faulty comparison.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good. As a beautiful woman friend of mine who lives here, her name's Cindy Welker, and she once said, never compare your inside to another person's outside. And I just think that's brilliant, because how many times have you glanced at a very happy married couple or a very happy family or a very happy nun or a priest, and you just go, my life sucks, their life is perfect. What is wrong with me that I cannot make my life like that?
Yeah.
But their life's not even like what you thought it was. Or
Yeah.
it might be more beautiful than you think, but it's not without its crosses and thorns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I think a big part of my issue is that I sometimes I see other people's crosses and I think that looks simple. It's not easier or harder. I just I constantly desire simplicity. My favorite gun, AK-47. I don't need perfect accuracy, or I want it to work. I just want it to do what it says it does well and often and despite hardship. You know what I mean? Like the simplicity of it is great. No bells and whistles, just works. And so when my sin feels, to me personally, very complex or whatever, and then I lament my own situation, which is pathetic for sure. And then you see someone else going through something that is like, you know, whatever. And you go, but that looks simple. It looks like all you have to do is go from A to B. Whereas I feel sometimes in my own sin that I'm going from like A to 8.1 to 8.2 to 8.3, back to A, back to 8.3, go to 8.5. When am I going to get to B? You know, and you're just discombobulated.
But what is B? Because
exactly.
if B is just no longer having this struggle, then I agree with you. But if the point is union and communion, you can have that at 8.1 and 8.2 and 8.3.
That's what I should be focused on.
Yeah.
100%. But instead, you kind of just lament your situation. It's a grass is greener situation, which dangerously gets close to envy, I suppose, which I should avoid.
Have you ever encountered someone who's maybe telling you about something traumatic that happened to them in their childhood or something like that, and they too quickly go, but whatever. Like I know other people go through things.
Oh, I do that all the
It's
time.
not a big deal. They say that. Just real quick, what I'm trying to say when I say that we are in a particular part of the battle and it's ferocious in a way that it hasn't been, I think to emphasize that is it's like saying to the friend, no, don't do that. Don't downplay what you've undergone, because and I think we do that too much. That's, I guess, so to put a spotlight on the ferocity of this part of the battle for the people of God is a kind of response to those of us who go, we have it easy and we got a church up the road. It's like, don't do that. No, you're under violent spiritual assault right now, and it doesn't do anyone any good for you to pretend you're not going through that.
I couldn't agree with that more, actually. That's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to take a moment to reflect on everything. Yeah, the simplicity. I desire simplicity so much. I just want to know where to go and how to get there. Just let me do it. Like when I work out, I love like CrossFit. I love just showing up and there's a workout on the whiteboard. Do it as hard as you can. No thinking, no planning. No, is this the best thing for me today? Am I maximizing gains? Am I doing the best? Nope. There it is on the board. Get it done. I love that. And so I desire that in my spiritual life so often, but that's not how it works at all, even a little bit.
Yeah, that's really good. And I suppose maybe lay people like Shayne and myself might look at you, Mother, and think, well, you have it. Like you have and I don't think this is true. I think you'll probably push back against it, but like it seems to us that you do have this plan of life and these specific prayers you have to pray. And like, that's it. But maybe why isn't it that simple? Or is it?
Because relationship is not simple. So, like in relationship with the Lord, like I'm very broken, and brokenness in relationship, like brings about, it just needs healing. And that brokenness is from me and not from him. But, I don't know. It's just like, I also get tired and prayer is hard and I don't want to do the things, and I get annoyed with my sisters and I get snippy with my sisters. And I really, really dislike the Archbishop Fulton Sheen quote that is quoted all the time of hearing a nun's confession is like being stoned to death by popcorn or whatever.
Yeah.
I really dislike that because I guess this is... This is part of what I mean of empathy is not putting yourself in someone else's shoes. It's empathy is being that person in that person's shoes. Is what I consider a sin that weighs very heavily on my heart might seem trivial to someone else. But when you're spending the hours in prayer that I am, and you're living this intense community life, and so many of the things of the world have been removed from me, then actually this sin is very serious. Like it's serious for me to look the Lord directly in the face and say no. And that looks different for a nun than maybe it looks for a lay person, but like, don't just assume because this thing that you're doing you think is more objectively grave. Yeah.
A monk once said to me, if you want to see how boys sin, go to Vegas. You want to see how men sin, come to a monastery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the backbiting and the envy and the pride and the arrogance actually is, in some sense, worse than what we might consider more grandiose sins.
Wow, what a saying. The Vegas monastery, they want to see all man sins.
Yeah, man sin, come here.
That same monk has said that to me as well.
That's very
Is that how
interesting.
you know it's the same monk? Because because of the same story?
Yes.
Ah, good.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but it's true. It's like, okay, well, it might seem silly because all of that time in prayer is forming my heart to be a contemplative heart. It's making me more aware of the things that are happening inside of me, which is why I constantly come back to that of like, it's good for us to have this self-awareness to look at what's happening inside of us. And I think most people don't pause to see that. We just fill everything with noise. But that means that like I have a greater consciousness when I'm choosing this sin, or so it might seem like not a big deal that I got angry with the nun for not putting the scissors back at my desk. But didn't I promise that those are not my scissors and this isn't not my desk? And like, I said those words aloud in my profession service, and to violate that, like, again, there's just, I don't know. It sounds so trivial. If you're considering that in the context of your everyday life, but yeah.
I wonder too if it's not that the sinning in Vegas aren't also committing the graver sins of envy, pride, etc. It's just that sometimes we don't even notice them. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. When I used to live in Ireland, we had this massive snowfall, and look out the backyard. There was this beautiful thick blanket of snow. It looked very pristine, very beautiful. As it became warmer and the sun began to melt the snow, I began to realize that there were things out there. There was a tricycle, and I could see a handle sticking through. I'm like, oh, there's a tricycle out there. As the snow began to melt, I realized my back lawn was covered in litter. And I think sometimes that's our journey with the Lord. Before we encounter him, we think, I'm a good person. Mm-hmm. And then as the Lord works on us, we realize there's a few things I have to change, but basically I'm a good person. But if the Lord can melt our heart, as it were, we begin to see just what St. Paul does. Like, I'm the greatest sinner. And he's not lying. He's not exaggerating. He doesn't have a complex. Like, he's right. He just sees something about himself that you and I don't see yet.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And it's right to take that seriously always, right? I mean, at what point is it important to, you ask God for forgiveness and you want to give it to him, but is there a certain point where you need to focus on forgiving yourself, or should you not focus on that and focus on just giving it all to him? Like, how do you balance those two things?
Yeah, I think we have to forgive ourselves. We have to have compassion with ourselves. Like we're called to have compassion on other people, certainly, right? Everyone would agree with that, but like, love your neighbor as yourself. So you need to have compassion on yourself as well. Because what's not okay, it's good for us to take our sins seriously. It's not good for us to be debilitated by that, or to think that because I've sinned, that's an impediment to, like, the Lord no longer wants relationship with me. Or like when we can't move forward. Yeah, I've talked about this before on the podcast for sure, but I think that the Lord and the devil both want us to see our sin. It's not like the devil always wants to hide our sin from us. Sometimes he does that. But the devil wants us to see our sin and get stuck there and to feel despair. There's not a way forward. I will always be this way. I will never be close to the Lord. The Lord wants us to see our sin, but always he's offering a hand forward or a hand out to, like, help us out of the thing. And he's always offering relationship. He's always offering repair. He's always offering healing. And so if we're not feeling the gentle conviction, it's still a conviction and it still hurts. But if we're only experiencing the despair, then we're looking at our sin through the devil's lens, not through the Lord's eyes, because the Lord doesn't see our sin and just say, well, you're a piece of crap and look at this hole that you've gotten yourself into and now good luck. Like, that's not how the Lord looks at us. Yeah. So we certainly have to forgive ourselves and to move forward and to just kind of like, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough, especially if you hurt someone else via sin, and then you're like, how do I deal with this? Like, I had the experience of, this is pretty vulnerable. I guess. I mean, I don't know. I'm dating someone, and I had never really argued with any of my previous partners ever, which I now realize is a huge negative and is evident to me in my relationships and how they ended. But this person, she'll argue, she'll stand up for herself, but I swore while we were arguing with each other, which is something I've never done, and I like felt I can't describe how much shame I felt later, you know, and like how horrific I felt. And like, you know, I'm seeing myself I've had the opposite experience of you. Like you're talking about hearing your mother laugh in the room. I remember hearing my mother scream. And so like protecting women or being there for them or being perceived as someone who doesn't treat them well affects me in like ways I can't even like I would make myself emotional currently. Like it's really hard. And so to have failed in that way and then to be like, well, I'm sorry, God, that I did that. But then like you have this like horrific feeling where you can't seem to forgive yourself. And then you're like, well, obviously God wants to help me with this, but like, where do I go with this? Because I have it. And I'm asking God for forgiveness, and I'm feeling, I understand that I'm forgiven, but then like I am not forgiving myself. Is that a sin? Where am I going with this? How do I get rid of this? Do I even want to get rid of this? Should I hold it and be shameful because I don't want to repeat the behavior? Is this some sort of penance? There's a part of you that's like, I'm going to fast for a week straight because I suck and I hurt someone I love and was like reprehensible. You know, and then you just like, where do I go with that? What do I do with that? I think a lot of people have sort of that, especially when it's someone else.
I know exactly
That's
what
the
you mean.
worst. And so then you feel guilty because you're like, well, I gave it to God, but did I really? Because I'm still struggling, you know? And it's just like, and then also, let's say you did that bad thing and then you're guilty for yourself. And then who is it? I can't remember which saint that said, don't dwell on your past sins lest the devil renew his war against you, you know? And so then I'm not committing that sin again, but I'm reliving it constantly, you know? And is that a sin in and of it? Am I the same way if you allow lustful thoughts to just control, you're on an airplane and you're just thinking about the woman next to you, that's a sin. It's not good. You shouldn't feed those thoughts. So by feeding these thoughts of my previous sin and punishing myself and not accepting God's forgiveness, like, but then there's a part of you that's like, I want the person I hurt to know that I feel bad. But at what point do I let it go and how do I do, you know, these are all questions that are like incredibly difficult when dealing with sin and other people.
Beautiful questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think a lot of that comes, I mean, I don't do any of this well. So just to be clear. Also, the episode that I think I most recently released for Pints with Aquinas was like announcing to people, like, I'm a huge hypocrite and I want everyone to know that. Because I give all of this advice on how to live the spiritual life. And I'm like, but I don't like do that. So let me just preface with that. I'm reading a book right now called Overcoming Spiritual Discouragement by Father Timothy Gallagher, and it is excellent. And highly recommend. And a lot of it is about this. I think the thing that I would say is like, obviously if you've caused harm to someone, you need, to whatever extent you're able, to offer some sort of repair with them as well. Like, it's not only in the confessional that this happens. So apologizing and so on, but there's also, this takes so much humility, which is why I say I don't practice it, because I'm an extremely prideful person. But I at least intellectually know that if you can muster up the humility to accept that if God uses all for good for those who love him, if he uses evil, he even wants to use the evil that you committed for the good of that woman. Like, if you can be humble enough to say, like, just as he's used the evil in my life and the suffering in my life for my good, what I've done to her, the way that I've spoken to her, he also wants to use that for her good.
Wow.
Because maybe what that woman needs is to have a man come to her and say, I spoke to you in a way that is so beneath your dignity.
Yeah.
And please forgive me for that. Maybe that is more healing to that woman than you never having spoken that way to her to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll let her know I actually did her a favor, actually. By
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, man.
Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. Does that mean we should sin more? Of course not.
It is a great point, because we do all accept the fact, even if we don't feel it, we accept the fact that God is going to use everything for our good.
Yeah.
Even our mistakes and our sins. But what if God was so good that he would do more than that? What if he would use our sins against others for their good too? How good is this God? Maybe we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard.
But I do think what you were saying earlier about, is this a sin and now am I sinning? I just think as soon as I go down that rabbit hole, it's so unhelpful. Even like when you feel temptation to lust or something like that, you're like, well, no, is that a sin? Is that a sin? You can get so fixated on that. It's just, no, it's not. You haven't committed the act. You're not thinking it through. Like, it's one thing to go, oh gosh, I'm lusting right now. I guess that's intentional. It's like, yeah, maybe not. Because that's a very different thing to saying, you know what, like once I get to this place and I get to my hotel room, then I'm going to spend an hour lusting or something like that.
Yeah,
okay, that's intentional. But so much stuff flies through our head at all times throughout the day that's trying to lead us out of the temple that we are towards shiny objects.
But
or am I wrong?
I think it's still not the point. Like, what's even the point in saying, well, no, it's not a sin, and just move on? Like, maybe.
No, I'm not saying it's not a sin. I think we're sinning all the time. This is why when I say
so
sin.
you said no, it's not.
Well, I guess what I mean is a sin that you have to even willingly repent of. Let me try to explain this because I might get it wrong.
I see where you're trying to go with this.
My heart is a dog and it keeps trying to run away. And I have to keep calling it back through the Jesus prayer to sit at home with Jesus. And all temptation calls me out of wakefulness into a desperate, deep slumber. Sin causes us to sleep, and it's horrible. But there's certain sins that really put us unconscious, and then there are certain sins that make us drowsy, eh? And so what I'm saying is, like, if I've like knocked myself unconscious willingly, then I'm repenting of that sin to a priest. But all throughout the day, I'm being led outside of the temple that I am, this outpost of Eden that I am, and to dwell on those things pulling me out of myself is exactly the wrong thing to do. Instead, it's Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner. It's like, the analogy is, I keep using it, is when my dog runs away from me, if he's out of sight, I go, Pushkin, and I call him back. And that's what the Jesus prayer does to the heart that's being lured into sleep by external things that are outside of the kingdom. Something like that.
Yeah, no,
or maybe nothing like that. What do you think?
I think that's extremely beautiful and accurate. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say, is like, the point is not even to define, well, is this a sin? Is it not a sin? At what point did it become a sin? What is the thing that I need to, because like confession, I love confession. I go regularly. It's beautiful, but we just keep forgetting that confession is a mystery of healing. Like, it's listed in the catechism as one of the sacraments of healing. Confession is like, and it's meant to be that. But we get into this crippling mindset of confession where it's like, that's the place where our sins are forgiven. And so that's why it's important to know, is this a sin? Is this not a sin? When did it become a sin? Because I have to like get all the sin together and take it to this place where it's forgiven. And like, we're totally misunderstanding what the point of confession is, because our sins are forgiven through the reception of the Eucharist. Like, that's part of the prayer in both the Roman Mass and the Eastern Divine Liturgy is that the Eucharist is given for the remission of sins. Now, of course, if you're not in a state of grace and have committed a sin that that meets all three of the constituents of a deadly sin, of a mortal sin, then I'm not saying the Eucharist forgives that, and you do need to bring that to confession. But like, if you haven't met those three constituents, those sins are forgiven through receiving the Eucharist,
Through making the
through
sign
praying
of
the
the
Jesus
cross.
prayer, through making the sign of the cross, through receiving a blessing, through praying the rosary, through like whatever. Like the sins, it's not like we have to just gather up all of the sins and take them to this magical place where the sins are forgiven.
The car wash.
Right. And even those sins that are forgiven through the Eucharist, or the sign of the cross or the Jesus prayer, like we also bring those to confession to the extent that we can remember them, to the extent that they're on our heart, but not because we have to say this out loud or we're not forgiven. Because this is like, we just get into this trap. And this, I'm speaking from very personal experience, because for years, like I was hardcore broken of my scrupulosity like a year ago. But for the rest of my life, there was so much scrupulosity. And so I'm not just like naming other people's sin here. I'm talking about myself. Like there's this misunderstanding that until I get to confession, the sin is not forgiven. And I like have no chance to redeem relationship. Even for the smaller sins. I don't even like using that phrase, smaller sins. But my point is like
Venial.
Yeah, but the confession should not be the first time that you're talking to Jesus about your sin. The moment you realize it, like, and I guess that's what I mean. So you're having the thoughts about the woman next to you on the airplane. Bring the Lord into that, like immediately. Not just in the sense of like, God, forgive me, I'm doing this thing, but like, Lord, I don't want to actually be having these thoughts. Like, what if instead of obsessing over whether or not something is a sin, you're instead spending that time like having a conversation with the Lord or praying the Jesus prayer? Or like, are you really spending your energy wisely by just obsessing over defining something as opposed to putting that energy into relationship? Right?
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
100%.
so
Really
much.
sweady.
I
Got
said-
really fired up.
I said 1,000%. You said 100%.
Oh,
Which
dang,
means
you're
Matt-
so
Matt agreed more.
1,000,000%. What now, everybody? If you say a
What are you
billion,
gonna
I'll
do?
freak out. Yeah. The Hail Mary has been my like refuge anytime I begin to have like negative thoughts, even just like anxiety and stuff. I just Hail Marys in my head and just invoke and it just like, it really is so healing. I'm like, I find like as every day as a Christian, I'm like, the rosary is like my weapon. Like I have like 2 on me at all times, 1 in the car. The rosary you gave me is in my window. Like it's my anti-theft device. People see, I can't rob this guy. He's got a rosary in his window or on my rear view. But yeah, that's been the best. So when I do deal with those thoughts or whatever, it's true. The Jesus prayer and the Hail Mary both.
Yeah, sometimes it's probably always a better idea not to go to war with the thought.
Yeah.
But to call upon the Blessed Virgin.
When you were saying gather them up, I had this image of when you have like a pile of trash and you take to the dump. Is this an experience either of you had?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, I'm going to do it.
Or Goodwill is another
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
I just moved recently. My car is filled.
Exactly. You go, oh, I'll do it. And then you don't. And you pile up more. And at first it was just a small pile. It didn't mean anything. It was fine. It's just in your yard. No one cares. And then after time, now you're that family. And you have a pile of trash in your yard. Now there's animals living in it. There's bugs. There's too much to fit in the truck. Now you got to make 2 trips. And now you've created a dangerous problem. The pile has strength. It's an entity on your property, you know what I mean? Like, as opposed to when it was just like some trash. Now it's the pile. And I feel like I can do that with my sin, especially the smaller ones, or smaller. They never feel smaller to me, but yeah. So when you say like you give it up to the Lord, that's something I have to start doing.
Well, because that reminds me of like the other problem that this creates when we have this view of, well, I just like store up my sins until I get to the place of the confessional. And then I can start talking to Jesus about them, and then I'm forgiven for them, is like, then we fall into this trap of, well, if we have, this was like my life in college. If I have committed a mortal sin and I can't receive communion, then like, what's the point?
My spiritual life's on pause right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, well, why not commit these other sins? Because I can't receive communion anyways.
Yep.
And because then it becomes, this trap of like, the point is getting to confession where we can say the thing as opposed to actively working on the relationship right now.
Yes.
I want you to speak to this, Mother, because this must be true. But I think the devil is hell-bent on us not believing it. It is a delightful thing for the Savior to save. It's got to be. So that we can even please him. Even our sins can please him. Don't misunderstand me. Not you, but those watching. When we repent of them, they become an opportunity to delight him, because it's a delight, because that's his name.
That's scriptural. There's more rejoicing in heaven over one repentant sinner.
The saints and angels.
But we don't believe that. I believe a lot of the time that God is more like, I don't know, like someone who comes over to do his service, but I haven't filled out the paperwork properly, and so he leaves, or he's not actually invested in doing the thing I'm asking him to do. He's going to find ways to not do the thing I need him to do, namely save me.
Well, this is, I think I make this point maybe in the episode I did about like not sinning is not the point, is when that becomes the point, when it's just like we just want to be in a place where we just don't sin and we just get everything right. And usually, again, if you have that mindset in the focus of like, not I want to not sin, but I want total union with God, then it's beautiful. But if the point is simply not sinning, then what you're saying is like, I don't even want to need God. I don't want to need a savior. I want to be able to just get everything right so that I don't ever have to say I'm sorry, so that I don't ever have to ask for help, so that I don't ever have to ask for healing. I just want to get it all right now. And that's very different than saying I just want total union with God is very different than saying I want to not mess up. There's a totally different focus there.
Tell me if this is a little bit like what you're saying. It would be like saying like, I want to love my wife by not committing adultery or something. As long as I don't commit adultery. Maybe that's not exactly what you're saying. Sorry. But I mean, the point of my marriage is union with my wife, not adultery.
It's not doing things. It's also doing things.
Yeah.
That's no, it's not exactly what you're saying. So I'm sorry if I misunderstood you.
No, I understand that point as well. I think it's different, but it is a good point. But it's, I mean, at the call of Matthew, Jesus says, I didn't come for the righteous. I came for the sinner. But we're just like, well, I don't want you to have to come for me.
Come for Shayne. Come for Josiah.
Yeah, right. But not me.
I don't need you.
Right.
Faustina, Christ says to Faustina, the greater the sinner, the greater right he has to my mercy. Cha-ching.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Imagining the saints and angels watching me is always something that like kind of fires me up.
Especially with your photographic imagination.
Oh, 100%. There's this story about a battle between the Eastern Roman Empire after they're Christian, and they're about to fight a Muslim invading army. I can't remember the generals' names. I'm usually good at this. But anyway, they're lined up for battle, and it's this whole huge thing. And this champion of Islam or whatever, he comes out, this like incredible warrior, rides out on his horse, and he's like, which Christian wants to fight? Like, who wants to do this in front of everyone? And back in the day, during ancient battles, there would people would watch. So there would also be like a baggage train of people. They'd be witnessing the battle, and then all these soldiers. So thousands and tens of thousands of people. So he comes out and he challenges everyone, and the soldiers don't really want to do this. They're just getting ready to fight. And a wrestling instructor comes out, a person who just came to witness the battle. And he's like, I don't know, whatever, I'll do it. And he's not dressed in armor. He's not ready to fight. He's literally a wrestling instructor. He owns like a dojo. Okay. And so he just shows up and he's like, yeah, whatever, I'll fight you. And the guy goes to spear him and he pulls him off of his horse. And then the historian says he executed him like an animal, humanely. Like he basically just beats this guy up and slits his throat in front of everyone, like kind of casually. And everyone is like, whoa, like this is the craziest thing. And the Romans are going crazy because they thought they were going to lose. And now this wrestling instructor just took this guy off a horse wearing armor and stuff when he's just like shirtless and like kills him. And then another guy comes out and he's like, what a fluke. I'll fight you. And the wrestling instructor is like, whatever, I guess. And he kills him too. But the imagery of this army that thinks they're going to lose. They're terrified. They're lined up for battle. No one wants it. Everyone's worried. And this just like casual guy does this. He's brave and he steps up and he does this in front of everyone. And just imagine the craziest catch in a sports game and how insane the crowd goes. Now imagine that catch is going to save tens of thousands of lives. How the feeling of everyone just going absolutely nuts. Like no one is more pumped than those soldiers watching that, you know? And then and then you imagine like the saints and angels in heaven have to be going even crazier. Do you know what I mean? Like, because to overcome sin and to make it into the kingdom of heaven, like they're there, they understand, they know. And it's just like to imagine them just like this huge roar and this cheer and this like elation, not because they're saved, but because you're saved, is like really something I imagine often and kind of helps me. Yeah, I like that. It's nice to think about. I know that it was a really macabre thing leading up to it, but that's just how it works for me. I can't help myself.
Well, we've been going for 3 hours and 15 minutes, so it might be time to wrap up before our hard drive stops receiving any